It is the newest episode of Summoning Insight. Not much going on in LEC, obviously. We've had the week off in that one league. Did have some LTA action. We'll actually talk a bit about that. And obviously LCK, LPL, etc. all going on. I actually have a random detail I want to start with, Yamato, just because I don't know if you saw this, but it just came out very recently. There's actually a little bit of drama around LTA and Team Liquid. Did you see this? It's not actually about League of Legends, it's about Team Liquid, the org, where basically, as far as I can tell, this was reported by Sheep Esports, like on their official account as well. They say that what's happened, as far as I can tell, I haven't followed this story, so I'm just going to give you the basic details here. People will know in League of Legends that Team Liquid for the last few years, because they're obviously a very successful org with sponsorships and partnerships, their main partner has been Honda, because it was obviously in the name. Remember, think of all those videos of the League of Legends players saying like Team Liquid Honda 1 million times to put it in your brain. Basically, it turns out, it appears that a Team Liquid Rainbow Six player, who I'm guessing based on his name is Brazilian, based on this story. If you don't know, Rainbow Six is huge in Brazil, a bit like how Counter-Strike is as well. And that is actually like, it's not one of the major esports to me, but it's in the next circle of like, the Rocket Leagues and the other ones that you put at the side, maybe Valorant's like between that and the big bump up. And basically this guy, after a game, has stupidly taunted, it appears, a Japanese player by using a GIF of the Hiroshima bomb exploding. Now, here's what's mad about this, Yamato. When I initially saw it, because it doesn't say any of that information in the original tweet, because guess what, Yamato? It was Sheep Esports reporting that. So they're not actually journalists, mate, so they wouldn't know, like, to give information, context. They just basically put, like, Team Liquid sponsor is leaving because of a thing about it, making fun of Japan. It's like, you haven't given me any information yet, mate. That's like the most large version of that description. So basically, here's the problem. I actually initially saw this, Yamato, and thought, oh, is this going to turn out to be one of those things where, like, someone gets in trouble for something actually harmless? Like, I'll give you an example. There have actually been examples in the past in sports, Yamato, where people got in trouble along, like, racial and social lines where it was actually literally a misunderstanding. Like, I'll give you an example. When Serena Williams, the really famous tennis player, was like, it wasn't when she was at her peak, it was towards the end of her career. She was once playing, and a commentator explained, like, she's sort of using guerrilla warfare tactics, right? This is not a joke, Yamato. That commentator got into trouble because people complained he called her a gorilla. Now, you will know this. Those aren't even spelt the same. Those are two totally different words. I know they sound a bit like gorilla, the thing that's in the, like, King Kong or whatever, but it actually means like people who do guerrilla tactics, as in, like what the Americans did against the British in the Revolutionary War, you nip in and attack someone, then you run back out and you sort of like snipe at them, etc. So anyway, I thought, oh, is this going to be like that? Is it going to turn out that what actually happened was, because it didn't say this in the original post, is it going to turn out what happened is a player lost a match, he's got on Twitter and he's thought, oh, fuck, the end of the world, innit? So what he's done is just done a gif of like, I'll just show like a nuke blowing up or whatever. It isn't that. It turns out actually apparently he did that to taunt some Japanese player, which is mental. And the reason I bring this up, Yamato, isn't for nothing. It's because, one, apparently it looks like you're not going to see Team Liquid Honda anymore, unfortunately. Although I will say this, I have to add in a cynical like sidebar as someone who's been in the industry a long time, Yamato. I don't know that I actually believe that's why they dropped the whole partnership. That sounds to me like you might have put it this way. When Jojo Pion was in Cloud9, and it's actually because he fucked up and lost 100 Thieves and didn't go to Worlds that he like magically got cut for being late. But I've always thought if he at the end of that split had lifted the trophy and gone to Worlds, it wouldn't have mattered how many times he'd been late, mate. He'd still be in Cloud9 and everything would have been fine. I think what happens sometimes is you're looking for what you call a pretext to do what you wanted to do anyway. I imagine what probably happened is they signed that deal a few years ago when economics were different. And really it's more like, because you fucked up in this sense, which you have. If it's a Japanese company, you've made fun of a Japanese player using fucking nuclear bomb blown up in their country. That's a brilliant, but potentially like just simple reason to end the deal anyway, that maybe you wanted to do anyway. And lastly, I'll throw this in there. Another reason why this is relevant to bring up is because you don't get this very much in League, because unfortunately Brazil just hasn't been very good in League of Legends. Like, they barely ever had impact beyond those 2 BO1 upsets, 3 technically at the Worlds. They just, for some weird reason, even though their league's being very strong and they've had good players and even had Koreans and like people like fucking Crown, somehow they just never translated it to being big enough. So because they're not actually successful enough, you don't actually have to interact with Brazilian fans that much in League of Legends. But I can tell you the reason why, to me, even though sadly it's Team Liquid that has to suffer, the reason why there's almost a karma to this, Yamato, is because you won't know this, and this might actually shock you, mate. You're going to think I'm exaggerating, but I don't exaggerate. Mate, it was actually a very famous thing that Brazilian fans do in esports that if anyone who is basically Anglo, like they don't even know that me and Richard Lewis aren't American, mate. They just see people talk English and they think everyone who speaks English is an American because look, they're thinking of their worldview of Brazil. And they don't necessarily encounter Europeans as much. So what they would do for real, Yamato, is if we ever said something they thought was insulting about Brazil, like, you know, their team isn't the best, they would make fun of 9/11. That was the go-to, by the way. As in, they would post like pictures of the planes going into the buildings, like stuff like, lol, remember that? Even though the joke of it is, first of all, that'd be really out of pocket anyway if you were American. But it also just makes no sense to do it to like Richard Lewis, because like, I mean, he's from Wales, mate. Like that, there's not even a connection there. So anyway, I just think it's interesting karma because they get away with that because who are you going to complain to? But what they've done here is they fucked around someone Brazilian and not realised that only works on Europeans, mate. Don't you try that on Japan, Korea? By the way, try it on Korea. You'll find out like that Johnny Somali guy, mate. Try fucking around with Koreans and see what happens then. You won't like the results, mate. I don't think you like. So I actually wondered, did you see this? It was kind of like a mad day. I woke up and saw it, like, what the fuck? It's kind of.
I was also surprised. I also was confused that they didn't like put why. I had to like scroll down and see like someone asking Grok or some shit. Yeah, same. I was like, come on, man. And then I checked the player and I saw what it was, and obviously my first.
Yeah, by the way, esports, you failed if asking Grok gives more information. Because all Grok does is search the internet, you fucking idiot. It's not an actual person who has any. That means you couldn't even use Google. Like, so anyway, keep going.
Because I reached the same conclusion you did, you know. I'm plain and simple. I thought it's like maybe I don't want to speak for how sensitive this topic is, but I also, in my experience, it's like sometimes you look for a way out, you know? It's like sometimes it's so hard to end a relationship, you know, you got to move out, you have all your stuff there, you know, it's tricky. It's like, oh, you cheated on me? Oh, perfect. I can leave now, exactly. You know? It's like, I'm the winner of this, you know, I can leave. And from Team Liquid's side, it's just, I don't know what kind of impact this will have, of course, on finances, because in the end, it's like, Honda is like literally like it's a fucking the main sponsorship on the show, you know.
Well, I mean that'll be really expensive. Yeah, that'll be a lot of the money. Yeah, like if people don't know, when you go to sponsors like that, if you're Liquid, you have a deck. And by the way, title sponsor is usually like the biggest one. That's like the ultimate. A bit like when like I can't remember if they had it as the title, but I know like for example, a few years back, Cloud9 had like Puma sponsorship. These are like the ones where. It's one thing people don't understand actually, Yamato. You can have the same sponsor with a different org, but if they're just like a logo here, that might be like $10,000. Like the one that's like in the name might be millions a year. Like that could. I agree, by the way. That's why I also reference it, because this actually could impact the league, by the way, because the whole team could get affected by this. This could be like a massive amount of money they've lost.
Oh, it's like and they like Team Liquid, as you mentioned, it's like they've always had like the big brands. It's like they had the partnership with Marvel. They had it's like they were, I believe they were partnered with Coinbase before, like Coinbase has made like the big investment into esports. It's like a lot of the sponsorships, even something that I brought up, I remember, which I always thought was strange, like when orgs are sponsored by something and then the league is sponsored by something too.
Okay.
Because it got me thinking, because I remember I did like this Voice of Yamato episode with Sheep Esports, the Wulu person. Right. And I know that you watched it because I saw it, like you referenced it.
Some of the information. You don't know it. You inadvertently did me some work there, mate. Because you just let him talk and he said all stupid shit, didn't he? So it's great.
Because I asked him, like, oh, what do you think about Travis being sponsored by Liquid and then team like basically it was like Alienware sponsoring Travis, and then the league is sponsored by Alienware, and then this is sponsored by Alienware. It's like, what's happening here? It's like, what do you think about this? Conflict of interest, but there was nothing there. There was no substance there. But it just got me thinking, you know, it's like they always had like the big brands. They did a good job of selling sponsorships, and in conjunction with like esports having very limited money available, and them, for example, expanding the roster now to 6-man, it's like you're pinching every penny. You know what you can do. Sure. You know, you're trying to save money everywhere. And if they had an exit clause that frees them from like paying something in the midst of a year when you rely on that budget, that can have like extreme consequences. But I kind of wonder how that will play out in terms of the next years. I imagine the Team Liquid is well ran enough that they have enough coffers, enough money in the coffers to like keep them covered. But I think there's a lot of teams out there that would not be able to survive this at all if it happened like in the middle of a year, because it's like your budget is set, and then it's like you are there usually at a zero. There's no surplus there in most cases for esports. There's usually a negative. So I wonder how Team Liquid is going to manage this. It's going to look weird on the jersey. It's going to probably like tape, the chest,
Yeah, they'll have to.
the
We'll have
logo.
time to make all the new jerseys. Yeah, of
make
course.
new
No,
jerseys
you're
straight
right.
off the bat. It's going to be tricky. It's going to look
Absolutely.
weird.
By the way, let's talk about LTA then, even though that wasn't technically LTA news because it was like Team Liquid, but it wasn't actually in league. But I do actually think, like I said, I think people would just be interested in all that detail about fans. That is a real trend that they do that weird thing where I've never understood it, by the way, Yamato. I mean, I do on one level. Here's why I do understand it on one level, right? I won't make too big a sidebar about this, but I actually think, even though people think this is an edgy opinion, it's actually just real. One of the reasons why, even I understand the like social climate has changed, and obviously now there's giant sponsors, so you have to be careful what you say just for that reason alone. It's not really about do people get offended, it's about just the sponsor not like what you said. But even so, one thing I've always thought people went way too far with online is people act like when some person stupidly like insults someone else by saying a slur, that they're trying to like invoke all the worst things. So, like, for example, in this case, you can't, like, that guy's being a dick to that Japanese person, but he's not really, I imagine, happy that like the nuclear bombs were dropped on Japan, and he's like reveling in the idea that this guy's ancestors died. I don't think he's really, he's just being a dick, really. Like, the real problem with the online space, because I can tell you that when I came to the internet in the early 2000s, ended 90s, this is what it was like. It was just like the Wild West of all naughty lost boys who were like weirdos who were just on the internet. So back then, I can tell you, one of the main reasons people used to say slurs and shit like that all the time was, one, to be edgy, because at the time, remember, you remember this, bro. That's why we had the like IRL. It's like, that's not, people thought the internet isn't real life. It's like an imaginary silly space. And back then, your teacher wasn't on the internet. The fucking police weren't on there. Like, there weren't all these people who would find out what people said. So one, it was like naughty kids almost in the woods, like, say this, and saying some naughty things. And then secondly, when people are being toxic online and they're being horrible to each other, the problem is normally you have no information about the other person. You don't know who they are, where they're from, what they're like. So if people know any information, they're going to use that anyway. So like, I don't think most people doing that were even trying to be like hateful to people over like race and stuff. I think if they knew, for example, like what your mom looked like, they'd make fun of your mom. They're just trying to lash out and be a dick to you. What they're trying to do essentially, I know what I should say. They're trying to push your buttons. That's what they're actually trying to do. They're just trying to be like, right, I'm being toxic to you, you're being toxic to me, fuck you. Right, what button can I push that'll make you really mad? That's what I think most people are trying to do when they do that. So the problem in this case is you've mega fucked up in terms of the sponsor. Like, that's just beyond stupid. I mean, as I said, as soon as it's to an actual Japanese person, there's not even any way to wriggle out of that, mate. Like I said, if it had just been like a random game that had nothing to do with Japanese people, you could go, oh, that you just misunderstood. Like, he just meant essentially, like, oh, fuck my life or something. You could be a way to like argue that. You can't really argue this one. And then secondly, as I said, that's one of those areas where I do think Brazilians have gone way too far. This is why I've got experience, mate, way before this of what Carmine Corp fans would be like. Because what I know as a key principle about fan bases like this is it's not true that you're really toxic to them for no reason and then they respond by being toxic. It's the other way around. You know it is, mate. What happens is you say normal things, they go mental, and then after they've gone mental enough, you just think, fuck it, bombs away, and then you just say, right, I'm going to be toxic too. They actually, in the same way as in League, when someone's toxic to you in the game, it makes it way more likely you're toxic back to them, doesn't it? Or type shit to them or fuck with them or something. If they hadn't have done that to you, maybe it never ever happened. So I will just say this is an example where fan bases have to realise, like, even though for you personally there might not be a consequence, you're just a fan. They can't stop anything with you. It could actually affect your favourite teams. And in general, I would just say stay away from jokes like that. Like, the thing that the Brazilians don't think about in esports is, by the way, like, the odds that someone who's playing in esports now actually was affected by Hiroshima, probably not that enormous. Like, it'd have to be someone quite far back in their family. Bro, 9/11 was like 24 years ago, like 23 and a half. Like, there could actually be someone you're messaging about that whose dad died in that, for fuck's sake. So I always just think fan bases, like, I know people don't want to talk about because theory fans are the reason the industry exists, but like, there are really negative elements in fan bases, mate. And like, you just can't ignore it. It just exists.
It's kind of in my mind what really opened the gates between like communities in terms of like languages. Like, that was a big separator in the past.
Oh, true.
Just a translate button on Twitter.
Oh, it did, yeah.
Really,
Well, the
really
joke
like.
is the amount of like fucking ones that like we would never know what they're saying if we didn't have that button, right? We wouldn't go and put it into. You wouldn't. By the way, I agree with you. It's the button. You wouldn't even put it into Google Translate. It's too much effort. But if you press that button, here's the joke. I have a joke like this, Yamato, which is I always used to say that's why I used to love Russian fans. Because they would already write to me in Russian. And I once did an interview with like a Russian publication. And I said, so I'm fine because I don't know what they're saying. And I'm not going to click that button because that button basically just says insult my mother. Like you get the joke because it's not, I said, I learned eventually it's never going to be something good when I click that translate button, is it? So I'm not going to click it. So my joke about Russian fans was they're the perfect fan for me because I don't know what they're saying. And then they can just fucking listen to what I'm saying. So I think we've got that relationship sorted. I'm with you, though. That translate button changed everything, mate. It did.
Just as a follow-up too, because I think that's like the main thing. It's like in terms of how language is used and how people speak amongst them. It's like depending on the scenario in and the people that you're communicating, like the language often changes. It's like when communities interact, there's certain insults that are acceptable there, and then when it crosses over, it's like giga insulting to the other side. There's like certain things that you don't cross. For example, in Arabic, if you call someone any animal or you say anything about family, it's like the worst thing possible. Like that's like the worst thing possible. In Sweden, if you insulted someone Swedish, you like go after how they look or how they are, and in Arabic that would be like that's whatever, who cares? But if you insult, like it's like how insults are perceived and how people meme and how people like joke around with each other. It's like even it's like if I go back home and I'm talking with my friend group, it's like the way we fuck around with each other is like insult each other. This is not something that like would make sense to people. And I think the translate button kind of ruins those walls and barriers. And then it's like things that are not acceptable everywhere kind of seep through. And this is where I perceive like the most collisions most of the time. It's like, oh, the French community versus this community. Oh, it's like, oh, they have in jokes that they do that are perceived as very insulting on this side, and then they attack, and then they do things that is very insulting on this side. And I think this is usually where like the big kind of divide occurs. And I imagine for the same from your side. I don't think that he is anti-Japanese, so to speak, but it's just when you are at the behest of sponsors, you gotta be as least offensive to as many people as possible. That's what the job is. It's like they're supposed to sell products to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
That's why Dom made the point, right, when the owner of Gigabyte Marines, GAM, when Trump won, he's like, oh, let's go, my God. And it's like, what the hell? It's like, you're the owner of this
a tactical mistake for sure, yes.
And absolutely. that's just stupid.
Yeah.
It's just dumb. It's like, regardless if it's your opinion or not, it's just stupid because you just cut the potential fan base of yours in half
you just associated all your sponsors with that opinion. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Unfortunately,
you're at the behest of what where the money's from. It's like everyone is a slave to the dollar. It's just capitalism. That's what it is.
By the way, as a random aside, I shouldn't even really go into this because there's actually some insight like real esports. But I did a whole video on my channel about this, one of those petty grievances. But there was a really hilarious outcome of that, though, Yamato, which is there's this like Western Nutter in League of Legends. I don't even know if you know the name. It's just a random fan account where they'd actually gone. They were like, I think they're American. They'd gone to loads of live events and they'd picked GAM. You know when it's a woman, by the way. You know when they do that thing where they almost pick a team as though it was like a poor little abandoned poppy to like where they go like, oh, look at this shitty little teammate. I'm going to be a fan of them. Like, oh, look at you. Oh, like, you're not really even a fan because they're really good at the game. You just picked like, a weird curiosity. So this Western person had picked GAM as the team. I think maybe it was even when they'd had some results at Worlds or something. They'd picked that team as someone to be a super fan of and messaged a million times. They'd even gone to events, taken pictures with that CEO guy, even gotten a GAM jersey. And then when he did that tweet, they lost their mind on Twitter and like said how they'd never, they were not going to show it, but they said how they'd like never be a fan ever again of GAM and about how, cause he tweeted that thing about Trump, that he like didn't support women and like, just for like, the whole thing just went so far, Yamato, like beyond the pale, even though all the guy originally said was something like, love him or hate him, Trump is inevitable. That's like all he said. But this person took it as though he was like the biggest Trump supporter ever. It went so hard. It was so out of pocket. And the real only reason it's in my video is because, spoiler, this is someone who'd attacked me along similar lines for years, so I just used it as a way to highlight how mad they were. Basically, it was fucking hilarious though. It was funny.
I just imagine you had your roof is just all the grudges you hold. That's the
yeah.
last thing you see before you go to sleep.
It's why I call the show Petty Grievances. I even acknowledge they're petty, but I tell you what, they are grievances, bro. We're gonna get into it. Yeah.
It's the money, man.
And you know this. Here's the thing. Some of my best videos are those. Some of my best videos are those ones, like the ones where I just tear Doublelift's entire arse apart and show how he's just full of shit and doesn't know what he's talking. Those are the best ones, mate. Those are my best work.
But my man, Doublelift is in the public square, your conversation, This is just a Gam fan standing on business,
If you tweet at me publicly with an insult, you have chosen to engage with me publicly. I can now engage with you publicly. You know what I mean? Fair is fair.
That's fair. All right.
It's like a very, by the way, I've mentioned this a million times. People just ignore it. I'm one of the only people who has an honourable approach to Twitter, Yamato, which is unless someone has directly been rude or insulting to or about me, I don't tag people on Twitter, mate. I don't do a tweet like, at lol nemesis is a fucking moron who did. I don't do that. That's obnoxious as fuck. And now, to be fair, it's a bad example because he has actually talked about me in public, so I guess I could do that. But in general, I don't do that, mate. It's why the one time you saw when I tagged Nuke like that to fuck with him, that's because he directly fucked with me over and over again, mate, and called me a dog and all shit. It's you know what, mate, bombs away then. You want to have fun? I'm your Huckleberry motherfucker. Shout out Val Kilmer. R.I.P. Right, anyway, let's get into some League of Legends because there was LTA, and crucially, Yamato, here's the obvious question to ask. Team Liquid did win. Admittedly, it was against Shopify Rebellion, so it wasn't one of the hardest matches. But the obvious question to ask you is, what do you think about this sixth-man jungle move?
I love it.
Because we've discussed the UmTi topic many, many times. So what do you think of this?
I loved it before the games, and nice. I think the games were solid too. I just think in terms of the profile, UmTi never made sense for Team Liquid. It's a miracle that they got as far as they did even the previous year, and I give basically the previous year when they had so much success was lane swaps and also support just not being good in the entire region. There was just no supers that were performing. Vulcan was not performing. Busio was still scarred from his 100 Thieves days, and he didn't get the Mythy boost yet. It's CoJJ was just, if you compare, Team Liquid was playing 6v4 every single match that they played just because CoJJ was just so much better. And it was so obvious that this is going to catch up to them. Because UmTi was performing bad at the World Championship. It was a big problem in the finals against Inspire. The gap between him was just so massive to the point where they got so desperate that the game that they eventually lost on that base race situation with the minions was UmTi playing Lilia. They desperately tried to latch on to something that would work, and the world's performance didn't continue. And then now, of course, this year as well, they got lucky that they won Winter. It's Spawn said it himself. It's we won because we had better conditions in Brazil because we had an office, and the other teams just logistically weren't ready. And through that, even in the finals that they won against the 100 Thieves, UmTi was playing terribly. At, of course, first stand, he had a good series against Mr. Yike, but that was a very underperforming KC, and that tournament was just kind of an anomaly as a whole. But then the rest of the tournament, UmTi was just playing bad. In my mind, I was waiting for something like this. I got scared for a moment there because APA said in the interviews, it's nobody's changeable on this team. And then Spawn, as base as he is, said, no, APA is full of shit.
But didn't he even say even he is, though?
Yeah, even he is irreplaceable. Yeah. I thought it was base as all hell.
Gangster, yeah.
And then when they mentioned that they made trials to try to expand the roster, it's that's the coaching staff that can pull this off. It's if they can find instances where UmTi can perform better, which I don't know what is currently. It's the best circumstance for a player like UmTi is when the jungle role has as simplified of a responsibility as possible, which is
the most evil joke. Are you ready? It's evil, Yamato, but it's just good.
Evil by your standard. Oh shit, what's coming through?
Understand. I've never said anything on broadcast that was evil. It's a joke. But here's the joke. The worst thing about this stupid Rainbow Six player is now he's just fucked up UmTi's spot in LGL.
Oh shit.
Because the problem is, we all, I'm sure
man.
there's some scenario. Yeah, it's called LJL or CB LOL, mate. You want to get in LTA South, mate? We can sort it out. In fact, there's the move. You know what, UmTi? Just go to the other LTA, mate. You need to go to the Southern Division, then you can play. No, I'm with you, mate. It was a mismatch, wasn't it? By the way, at this point in time, I know it was only Shopify. Although, to be fair, by the way, Shopify did beat 100 Thieves not that long ago. It's not like they're total bombs. But here's my question, but it seems like an obvious answer. They are just going to stick with the Yuuji guy at this point in time, right? This is just like, this isn't some Gumayushi smash it back and forwards. You probably just keep the Yuuji guy as long as he doesn't fail now, right?
The main question is like back behind the scenes, what kind of buttons is this pressing? But UmTi has gone through like Korean teams for the majority of his career. It's like, I don't think there was a point in time where UmTi had he had like some bro splits that were like solid. I'm talking about the team, not like about a fucking exercise program. Like he had some solid splits. Like he played like some decent games here and there, and people as a meme were supporting him. But he's so far into his career, he doesn't have the characteristics at all of someone that I would consider having such a long career. It's like at some point you need to grow out of that rookie kind of shell, and he doesn't have that energy about him that he is experienced at all. And I don't know if there's going to be a world where he's going to improve based on the fact that it's a 6-man. I'm sure he's going to fight as all hell, because I don't see in which world he would play in a major region again, like the top 4 ones, so to speak, if he is out of Team Liquid. So maybe it's going to awaken something in him, but I saw from Yuuji enough to know that this is a player that fits with an impact. It's like he played a Viego game, a Pantheon game, and mechanically he was playing. Already, it's like, I don't think Yuuji is going to be like the best jungler in the league right away, because the competition is quite tough, especially like with Inspire being at the top.
Oh, sure.
But I do think that it's just a step in the right direction, because in the end, in terms of the profiles, it's like you have core JJ and Impact. You don't need a role player on this team. You need someone with fucking firepower. You need someone, like we mentioned it on the previous episodes. Like if Bo was on this team, I would be very happy, because he would just basically have like a Doimby light situation going on here with the amount of experience that he's just surrounded by, with Reignover being the coach and so forth. Like this is a team that just carries so much experience. So I am excited about this change. I think it's a good one, and I look forward to just watching more games. In the end, this was a solid debut. This is a player that was hyped before as well, who had like visa issues. I think it's impressive the Team Liquid managed to piece it together so quickly. I think this is like a good move, because Team Liquid now, at least there's a question of, can they compete now for the only MSI spot that the LTA North has?
For sure. Right. Obviously, the big marquee matchup was the Cloud9 FlyQuest game. Like, this is one where, here's what's interesting. I feel like people forget the narrative in LTA. It's actually a problem, by the way. It's one of the reasons I also don't like leagues, because I'm someone who has a very good memory. And what I noticed was, in most league formats, there's only 2 details fans remember. They remember the placings at the end of the regular part of the split, and then they remember who won the playoffs. And by the way, I'd even say of those 2 categories, it's way more than just remember the playoffs. So one of the worst things you get is, you get those runs. Think about this a couple of years ago. You remember like a couple of years ago, I think it was 2023, when, no, it was 2022, the one where Vitality with Perks had that like run in summer where they were like winning all the games and they were going to make playoffs, but then they like lost as many games as they could in the last week or so and didn't make the playoffs, right? Every fan just remembers that as, remember when Vitality sucked, and it's like, they didn't go, like actually for most of that split, they were like one of the best teams in the league. The real question is why they felt like that's a more interesting thing. But so essentially what people forget about LTA is it goes like this. Because of the way last split ended, and then this split began, and you had that whole FlyQuest like fucked up last split, and then they did the whole like, hey guys, I'm Bwipo and I'll give you like free lessons, and then he was losing to literally the teams he was offering the free lessons to, essentially, because he kept doing that. People forget that like FlyQuest's always been in the news, but it's been a while since they were actually the #1 NA team. Like if you actually were to make a power ranking, Yamato, like after like at the end of last split, Team Liquid came on strong and sort of stole #1 spot. But I would have actually said the power ranking was more like Team Liquid, then probably Cloud9, because actually since they got the Loki guy, they've sort of upgraded the firepower. And by the way, I actually think people like Dom look like they're doing something, mate. They actually Macro look way better on that team. Then I would have said actually third, I would have probably put 100 Thieves. I've even seen them beat some of these top teams. And then actually FlyQuest could even have been in fourth, or they were third or fourth. So actually this is a big win for them. Like this is almost a statement win. If you want to see FlyQuest be the potential champions again, because on paper, I think most people do think the rosters of FlyQuest and TL should be number one if they get it together. Like this is big for Cloud. I was expecting Cloud9 to win this game, mate. I was thinking they were going to just win this one and then FlyQuest was going to be stuck in the back seat. But remember, and this is a key to remember, Yamato. Remember, LTA North, I believe, only gets the one MSI spot, right? So you also can't even be second best. You have to actually be the one team of the region. So what did you think about this matchup? Because it potentially has big implications.
Oh, it was crazy. Like from my side, always with FlyQuest, I did think always in terms of how they play the macro, how they move with support was the most high level in the league. Especially even in winter, I just thought that they would up until the point that they lost. I thought that they were gonna win the entire time. I just thought their macro was so much better, and I thought that they would just be able to piece it together. But in winter, everything was very streamlined, and I think that. This kind of put them on the back foot because in winter, like everybody saw, like 100 Thieves was suddenly like performing better, and they made to the finals because with the introduction of Atakan, there was just constant fighting, and it was just a question of just showing up, being five, while FlyQuest tried to squeeze out the nuances of what the map state would be and play for an extra wave, and would often get lost in that process. We had like that match C9 versus Fly in that BO1, and I thought that FlyQuest's biggest weakness was that I didn't feel like they took enough initiative in the games. They kind of gave away fight opportunities. They were kind of waiting for a better opportunity and would lose games due to just inactivity. I felt like that always was my biggest criticism towards Inspired as a player, is that he is so precise to the point where it's too precise, where there's going to be opportunities that are missed because he believes there's a better opportunity happening in the game, and he's going to wait for that. But now with the shift up, especially in this series, FlyQuest played very, very early game oriented drafts where the onus was they needed to break that game. They need to stack 4 dragons as soon as possible.
So wait, are you saying with Inspired, to you see him as someone where I get what you mean, it does fit with his style. To you, it's like sometimes he's waiting for the perfect opportunity instead of taking like a gamble. Like to you, he's more like, put it this way, this is like a classic thing actually we used to say about Inspired. It sounds to me like to you, he's more of like an LCK jungler than an LPL jungler in that sense.
In a way, yeah. I do think that like when I think of Inspired, it's if his teammates are playing well, I think Inspired is the best Western jungler. If his teammates are playing worse, then I think that Inspired is going to be worse too, because he's not going to be allowed to do what he wants to do. So it's like when Flag was performing, when like Whippo is not creating like what game states that are like strange, because he's like, like in the Shopify Rebellion series where like Whippo was kind of having like a rough series. I do think that this is the opportunity for you to be a little bit more dynamic. But in the end, this is like a very small flaw to have as a player. Sure. It's like Inspired. When he knows what he gets from his teammates, he knows how to drive a game and he knows how to win a game. And he does. We had this conversation many times between him and Razork. He's like the guy who will never take like a bad decision in terms of taking a fight and like finding like an engage angle, and everyone's like, what the hell just happened? While Blabber as an archetype will find himself in those situations. But back to the series. C9, the first game, I actually thought, C9 have this draft that is like scaling. They had the Ezreal, Alistar, Talia against the enemy who had like Annie, Rumble, Volibear top. They sent Rumble support to kind of set up, the Volibear matchup in the Ambessa. And how the game started was like Whippo made a very bad mistake by like proxying a wave. He died to a jungle level 3 after, the only opportunity Blabber had was to go top, because what essentially happened in that game was I remember Inspired, they kind of late invaded, they pushed him out completely, Vi being very weak early on. Nafiri would have 3 quadrants, and I'm sure Inspired saying in comps, if I can clear my camps, I'm going to have a free win. Vi can only gank top here, and Whippo just goes and fucking proxies the wave and kind of throws the game in a way. And then as an extension, there was a situation where the grub spawned, 3 grubs, you have Volibear, Annie, Nafiri, you want to fight that no matter what, and somehow C9 is in a position where they get the grubs. So C9 was in position, they could easily scale into that game, and then for some reason C9 just take fight after fight on Dragon when it's not necessary at all. FlyQuest go back into that game, and in the beginning I was kind of worried because FlyQuest showed me those same problems where they didn't take initiative, they didn't take the fights that they need to take in order to snowball their composition, which in contrast, you mentioned LPL. It's like LPL, it's like they do it almost to a fault. It's like we should be fighting because we're stronger, so we're going to take any fight possible.
Yes.
Even though like, oh, my top lane is like top, he can limp into the fight, he can participate, we're going to find a way because we're supposed to fight now. If he's late, the meeting is starting. Like, screw that guy, And in the end, FlyQuest got fights that they shouldn't have, and that's like C9's problem. I think C9 took the approach of being the team that was supposed to wait and was supposed to find opportunities, or maybe Drake 3, have compositions that scale to 2 items, 3 items, to just focus on, of course, leveraging, map trades to just extend the game to the point where their composition scales out, but they just found themselves in fights over and over again for no apparent reason, because both of these drafts C9 needed to scale, they didn't give on time, and FlyQuest pretty much won the series in like sub 50 minutes. In the end, this looked like GenG versus DNF in terms of how one-sided it was, because C9 just didn't understand what the purpose of the composition was at all. And I have to give, a lot of fault here to Blabber in particular, because as a player, he was just taking fights that were just not necessary. They're trying to win the game on every scenario, and they didn't let their drafts breathe. So I wonder if C9 is going to look at this and try to learn from it, or if they're going to regress back to actually things that work, because I do think when they are the ones that need to fight and need to fight in the fight angles, I think if C9 played the FlyQuest drafts on this day, I think the day would be, looking a lot better, because they played the FlyQuest drafts with their own scaling drafts, which was very, very strange.
The thing I found so bizarre is, remember, Blabber has been the MVP of the LCS like a whole bunch of times. This is a very decorated place. Obviously been a champion many, many times. Like, one of the things I find bizarre is, mate, it's like he's losing a bit of his identity. Because on the one hand, he's actually not as good at being the maniac jungler that he used to be anymore, even though he still does it like sometimes with his picks. But then also, to me, he hasn't successfully made the transition to like the latter day, Yankosic Smithy, like I'm a more like supportive jungler. Like, he's sort of lost. Because I'm with you, Yamato. If you go watch this series, it'd be like the easiest series to like coach Cloud9 ever in VOD review, because all you say is like, why are you just starting objectives over and over again and fighting? But if you look, Yamato, they never ever win a fight. Like, it's even really weird, because the classic thing everyone always made fun of LCS for was like NA RAM, the idea you just do a 5v5 at mid or just at Baron, you go to Baron and you throw and you have the 5v5 fight. Bro, there never even were 5v5s in these games. Like, it felt like it was just Cloud9 and FlyQuest both go to the objective. Like you say, Cloud9 allows fights to start, or even start fights themselves. They lose 1 or 2 guys and then run away, rinse and repeat for like 2 entire games. Like, what a whack game. Like, it's weird, because if you did the NA RAM, I can at least go, well, you got team wiped, so you can lose a game off that. It's the modern meta. It's not even what you were doing. You just lost like the worst like war of attrition ever. We just kept, because that's the way I'm with you, Yamato. It'd be one thing if like you were just trapped and there's nothing you could do. They were sometimes like choosing to have fights that would then just lose and then have to run away. It's like, what a weird, this was a really weird series, because as I say, I do think actually that Cloud9 massively leveled up with this roster, how good they were playing like the overall map, and like they were playing off players' strengths pretty well, etc. So this was like a really bad series from them. This is really disturbing.
The main thing for me with C9, and I think about Reaper historically as a coach and times when he wasn't on C9, it's just kind of something that has followed C9 for a very long time. I think it's more so on the maybe Mythy, but for some reason it's just something that's been with C9. I feel like this team has always been in a place where their skill and sometimes arrogance make them think that they can do too many things in terms of what composition should be like. Often you want to believe in the idea that your players can figure out a certain way to play, like, oh, this draft is like this, you need to scale to this item, you need to have patience here and find your opportunities. That's most of the time very, very difficult. Most teams that are successful are usually just master of like 1 or 2 things. They follow a very strict recipe in terms of what will work. And if I look at these C9 drafts, we had like Thanatos on Ornn. It's not that he's bad Ornn. I'm sure he lanes well on Ornn. He did really well into the Renekton, burned flashes. But in terms of how you convert that into a winning game, it's a very, very different thing when you do that in the context of course, a pro match against a team that has very set recipes in terms of how they want to achieve things. Because FlyQuest had a very, very thorough line. It's very clear that they practice this. It's like, we're going to have the Rumble Flex to make our matchups winning, and we're going to just have compositions that want to fight, Drake 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's very streamlined how they need to play. The role of everyone is very, very streamlined. And I think this is what C9 need to kind of fall back on. Because it's very easy to fall into this trap of, I can play Ornn. Just pick me Ornn. Ornn is good here. This champion is good here. I can play this. I'm ready to play this. But it's just the age-old question of, can my team play Nidalee? It's like, my jungler is a good Nidalee, so I guess we can play Nidalee. But it's always the context of the rest of your team. Because if I look at the C9 roster and the strength of each of these players, I think they should just plain and simple fall back. They should look at what KC are doing, like in winter, where it's always carries for Thanatos, whether it's Gnar, Jace, anything that can win in isolation, anything that can just win him in isolation. Make sure that you have the supportive champions in the jungle position and also the support position, so you can always have a cohesive draft. If you end up on like Milio, suddenly you're going to lack that presence in terms of like having a tanky body on the Rift. So they try to compensate with picking Ornn. And once again, it's not the fact that Thanos is a bad Ornn. It's just that in terms of comp cohesion, I think that C9 need to kind of streamline themselves so they can add more and more layers. I think it's very easy when you won and you're doing well and scrims are going well that you want to add additional layers, but you need to be in a position where you master a single kick rather than trying to spread yourself so thin. So I think C9 should just take a step back, carries on Thanatos, melee engage always on Vulcan. Same thing for Blabber 2, so they just have good pairings, and then you can have your AD and mid just be a little bit more flexible and pick whatever is best, the usual Talia, Azir, Victor, whatever, and I think it will just be a lot better. I think Lucian is strong on the patch. I think Ornn can be picked into Renekton, but I think C9 need to just chill a bit and play less things at the same time, because you need to just drill those methods of winning in, so you have just a streamlined process of your growth.
As I say, though, to bring it all the way back, that's actually the one thing. Here's what's funny about it. Even though I hate it for the format, the fact that only one of these teams gets to go to MSI will make the playoffs mega high. Because it's not that shit of like, I mean, we'll get to the LCK one later, but it's not that shit of like, well, just make top 10. No, you have to actually win. So it's all the bragging rights, all the marbles, the fucking MSI spot. And remember, if you are any of those other teams, like, the real problem is this, Yamato. The only one of the big four that's allowed to not make it is 100 Thieves, because they're the guest spot team. They're the one that's not even really supposed to be here. And we're all just sort of like, if anything, we don't go on about it because we're just actually glad there's another half-decent team to watch that can actually win some games. But if you look at the other big three, especially their orgs, like FlyQuest isn't as big an org as Cloud9 team. Look at like outside of League of Legends. But in League of Legends, they've clearly put in a lot of their resources to the League of Legends team. Like, this team isn't cheap to maintain. So they obviously came off last year like, hey, keep the same roster and we'll be number one again. It would be a nightmare for them if they don't, like, they didn't go to first stand. If they don't go to MSI, bro, that's going to already be a really dodgy year. Team Liquid, I mean, as we just pointed out, they're a giant. Team Liquid and Cloud9 are enormous esports orgs. Team Liquid also, themselves, like a year ago, used to think we're the number one team. We've kept the same roster. I mean, they've even made the roster move now. Cloud9's is maybe a bit more questionable, but even then, like I say, if you just look at the results they've had, though, here's the thing. I will say the difference with Cloud9 is they do look like they get worse under pressure. If you put them in a random regular season game, well, they have beaten the top teams. They've just done it. They've shown you the firepower. So I actually do think it will make the playoffs super hype, though. Even though it's just all going for that one spot. It's going to make it fucking exciting. It's still hard to tell who's going to win. I want to see the bracket.
No. It's gonna be cool. Because like, after all, like the Fly C9 match was just like a seeding match, right? Which means a C9 play versus Team Liquid in the first round, and maybe the timing here is bad for C9.
There. Yeah,
you know, it's like Team Liquid got the new jungler in. Yep. I do think that Team Liquid and Fly, as you mentioned yourself, I feel like their prep just seems so much more mature and self-aware, which is normal because this team has been together for such a long time, and the coaching staff of both teams just has, like, they just carry a lot of experience, like Nooktuck, Mithy, Rainover, Spawn. It's like these are guys that have been around the block when it comes to just being even in the internationals with the same group of players, and that matters so much. You know what you can resort back to in best of fives when they get tough. You know how to figure out problems that C9 will have to figure out for the first time. In the end, Thanatos has not been a part of the team for super long. He joined last year in summer, of course, during very turbulent times. The same thing for Loki as well. There's definitely things that C9 will have to learn for the first time as they go through things. In the end, now with how things are looking, it's like FlyQuest, in my mind, looks like the favorite to win it all based off of these factors. But we saw craziness in the lead up to first stand. But I'm hoping, and I imagine that it's going to be a little bit more stable because there's no travel, of course, to Brazil. That is going to be, a logistical challenge that these teams need to just deal with. In the end, it's like referencing back to how important MSI is for the likes of C9, Team Liquid. Is like in terms of LTA North, not being super attractive in terms of viewership. I don't know how sponsorship acquisition will look like in a world where you can't present this opportunity. Is like, oh, look, we went to MSI. This was the viewership at MSI. If you can't add that to your portfolio, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna really, really hurt. And this is also going to be, always the community is a little bit slow at getting angry at these things until they happen, right? But when the Brazil team that is going to go to, of course, to MSI is going to get smoked in the bracket and maybe not even make it to the main bracket, due to circumstances. Like, people are going to get so angry about, oh, C9 is at home, FlyQuest is at home, fuck this format. Like, we're going to there's just like, it's like a bus going through the whole year and just a bunch of bus stops of people just getting angry over this LTA North and South merger. So I look forward to that community discourse.
One thing I do appreciate that comes from sort of sports law and culture, but I think it's actually a good thing, Yamato. People think this is just for movies. When you have the thing where sometimes a coach will actually sort of almost needle or fuck with his own player as a way to inspire them to be better or to have a big performance. And one of the ways you do that is you have to know the player. You have to know what would get him going. If I was Reapered, I'll tell you right now what I am saying to fucking Blabber if we actually end up playing against Team Liquid. It's obvious. I'm saying to him, mate, you are Blabber. You were supposed to be like the prodigy of NA jungle. You were the guy who was the MVP of the league. You were supposed to be basically, in the same way as we said about Georgia up here at Midland, you're supposed to be like double lift of jungle, like the one player that's better than your region and can actually compete with the international players. You're going to let this Yuuji guy, who was a literal NACL player, just walk in and take your fucking match? Like, no, that's where you tell that guy, like, show me who the fuck is Blabber? That's my question. Who the fuck is Blabber? Because I need to see it in this match, mate. Like, because if you gap that guy, by the way, we'll probably win this series. Because I'm with you. I actually do think if you look at their team, there's plenty of problems in Cloud9. But I actually do think in isolation, you can't doubt either of those two pickups of the Korean solo laners, mate. They're both good players. Like, that was whoever did it, whether it was Reaper, that was just shrewd fucking scouting, mate. Those are good players. Like, we've had plenty of players come in LEC that are up and down who are Koreans, or they're good in one-dimensional way. Like, they've actually even also somewhat integrated these players to their roster. I'm actually fairly impressed with how they've done it. They've done a good job. So, no, I do think if you're Blabber, you should have a lot of spotlight on you, mate. Because here's the thing. If you lose to Inspired, I'm with you. I can give you that. Inspired's always been better than Blabber, in my opinion. If you lose to fucking River, look, River he's like the players' player, and all the players hype him. I'm sorry, you're not allowed to lose to Yuuji. You're just not Blabber. If you're really the fucking cracked out player that Dom always said you were, so I'm just throwing Dom in there, but he can take it straight too. Then fucking beat this guy. Come on.
They need to, man. It's just, otherwise, it's like now the excuse of you catching up to these rosters, it's like, oh, Team Liquid. It's like, bro, Team Liquid also has that turmoil. No, they are implementing absolutely. A new jungler. There's no discussion anymore about all of these rosters around you, like 100 Thieves, retaining most of their players. Team Liquid, FlyQuest 2. There's no excuse now. They're sending in Yuuji. It's like, you guys have just as much, if not more, experience together. So it's time. It's time to shore up and get down to business, because I'm with you. My main concern is that fragility. These other rosters have been pushed and they've been backs against the wall. They know a lot about themselves. So and C9, they're going into new territory. It's like that playoff bracket with the best of threes was garbage in winter. This one is very, very honest because it's just double elimination BO5s. There's no bullshit. There's no bullshit at all.
Well, you know what, Yamato? I actually do worry that UmTi is going to have to leave LTA. I think his spot's been taken. I don't think he's getting it back, especially because of the negative goodwill towards him and the fact that he also sort of fucked up his personality. Like, he sort of annoyed people in a way where I don't think he played that card right. I think that he didn't realize they actually. It's rare because normally they tell you in LTA and LCS where America talks shit, right? I don't think people realize. I don't think people wanted that from UmTi. I think they wanted UmTi to be the sort of cutesy, cool guy that everyone pulls for. Like the plucky underdog. So I personally think he's done in LTA, Yamato, which means I do think he's going to be shipping out to Japan. Who knows? Maybe they've got a spot ready for him on Ultra Prime or fucking OMG in the LPL Nirvana group. So all I'm saying, Yamato, all I'm saying, Yamato, is if he did need to go to one of those regions, do you have any recommendations for maybe software he could use?
Oh, honestly, I'm impressed. I need to find my bearings. I didn't expect this at all.
Okay. I was trying to set you up. I was trying to make it subtle, trying to make it seamless.
It's a beautiful setup. Okay, Let me grab the ball, all right?
Okay. So, we'll reload that.
Foremost,
I'll take it through my legs, right? I'll pass it back. There you go. What app could he use? There you go.
We're talking about ExpressVPN, baby.
There you go.
Mask your location, which is something UmTi is definitely going to need as he's doing his job applications very, very soon. In the end, the main issue is... that we're facing, all of us are facing, is, in terms of choosing your internet service provider, most of us have very little choice, which means ISPs, basically, they operate like monopolies. And if they operate like monopolies, that means that they can take advantage of their customers. And of course, we are their customers. Data caps, bandwidth throttling, the list goes on. But of course, the worst on this list is they can track every single thing that you do, every website, every single torrent you download, every single
video, about, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, it's like I have this anecdote. There was this player, let's say, in Vitality. What he did was he had this infamous app where he could basically watch any movies that came out, and in the end, he did that over and over again. He did that when I was not in the gaming house. So I couldn't warn him over how stupid that is to do in Germany specifically.
Oh, my goodness, right, okay.
A couple of years, I believe a year down the line, Vitality as a team got a massive, 16,000 euro fine, I believe it was, because this man was just watching...
16,000 euros!
Yeah, this guy was just watching movies, in a way that wouldn't be, wouldn't be good according to the German government. But in the end, it's like, if he did that, let's say from a different location, any country, which of course ExpressVPN offers, then maybe you wouldn't have ended up in trouble. I'm not saying that you should do these things.
No.
I'm saying if you have access to the internet, you should be allowed to use your internet however hell you want without feeling like anyone is, of course, looking over your shoulder. The beautiful thing about ExpressVPN, if somehow, your government comes knocking on the ExpressVPN door and they say, hey, give me all the data. I want to know all the website that Yamato Can has been on. They say, we don't have this data because they don't have it. They don't keep it. They don't have it. Even if, gun to their head, someone wants that data, it just doesn't exist. And that's, of course, the beauty of it. I believe that anyone that has access to the internet, I think it should be, that's where, nowadays it's we live in a world where technology is a very, very big aspect of our life. For us to be limited in that regard when it comes to how you use your internet, that's just an infringement on your freedom. So in my mind, if you have your Netflix account, you want to, have access to shows all over the world, why shouldn't you? You're paying for that subscription, allow yourself to have that freedom. I personally use ExpressVPN in a way where I have it on my PC, and I really, really like this rerouting feature where I can choose specific windows and specific browsers that use the VPN. So I don't have to, for example, stream through the VPN, but I have my Microsoft Edge browser specifically going through the VPN.
About how that actually is useful that I didn't know, Yamato. For example, when I'm in the Netherlands, when I want to watch Premier League football, I have a service in the Netherlands I pay for, but I can tell you if you have a VPN on, it doesn't work because they don't want people not from the Netherlands to use it. So actually what you're talking about has been really useful to me, mate, because what I realized is if I want to watch that game, but then also use a VPN and visit some other website, I need to make the two apps separate. So that feature is actually OP as fuck. Yeah, I agree.
No, but this
Really
is
good,
like
isn't
my
it?
favorite feature because before I was like doing the ExpressVPN, like I had the VPN on my phone and then
Right.
like all that jazz. But now this streamlines everything. So
Right.
I'm like in 6 different countries at the same time. You know,
Right.
from my base,
Okay.
it's fantastic. I think it's also really cool that it's easy to use. I like this feature that you can just add it to any, like for example, I added it to my phone. All I needed was the code that I just got from email. It doesn't like tie to your login or anything. You can just make a specific device tied to, of course, your subscription, and then boom, easy to go. It just like from a press of a button. The options are also like endless and limitless. So in my mind, I've used ExpressVPN for a very long time. I'm super happy. You can today very easily protect your online privacy by just simply visiting expressvpn.com/summoning. That is expressvpn.com/summoning, and you can get an extra 4 months free. expressvpn.com/summoning. Thank you, ExpressVPN, for, of course, protecting our internet usage and making us just a little bit more free.
Let's do it. Let's go and talk about a different region. I vote we talk about LCK. Let's do it.
Okay.
Because if people don't know, there's a bunch of different angles here. So first of all, we had what on paper was the biggest matchup of the last few years. We had GenG against T1. Admittedly, they're in very different positions in their careers. Obviously, like T1's had those like dodgy weeks where they like fucking lost to Bro and they were having close game. This is like 2 ago. They had a close series against D+, etc. Like they've had their moments where they've looked a little shaky, obviously, and people have criticised Thorin. We referenced the Orcs thing on the last episode, and the Smash Gumayushi thing is still ongoing. Like, by the way, we're about to talk about in this series here, there's another example of where Gumayushi is showing his weaknesses. So the difference is GenG, as we pointed out, I think it was either last episode or 2 episodes ago, this is how you know that narratives actually have to be like built up slowly to be like to sustain the like energy release, Yamato, because since the year began with GenG, even though by the way they did almost win the split, because they didn't win the split and didn't go to first stand and thus aren't in your brain as like the number 1 team until this split, I actually think people almost haven't noticed, like, bro, they're about to do the undefeated splits. Like, it's really going to happen. Like, they've still lost almost fuck all games. But with that said, this match, it reminds me of that thing I told you in the past about all the telecom wars. So on paper, this match should be GenG's the number 1 team in the world by far, and T1's actually a bit shaky. That, even though this was a 2-0, mate, this was thrilling. Like this was fucking, there was some crazy moments in this. Like, one of the things is, one, it actually reminds me of earlier in the split when they played. There was one of those Chovy moments again, where he did like essentially he did a faker moment, 2 faker, where he did that like crazy fucking Azay shuffle or whatever. Like, first of all, there was a mega Chovy moment again. And then secondly, this shows you how DNA of teams is different, even when you only change 1 player, Yamato. Because remember, back in the day, actually T1 was one of the best teams at doing Baron, mate. That used to be where they would fucking trick out all these teams. This team now, like, fucking hell, that's like a weakness of theirs, mate. They looked really fucking dodgy. Like, in this game, they couldn't, any advantages they had, they couldn't use. Like, they gave it up. Like, I know it looks like because it's 2-0 and GenG never loses. People in history will look at the League PD and go, oh, it's just a 2-0. Bro, this was actually winnable. They could have been the team to, like, give them the first defeat. What did you think of this series?
No, it's like the both games pretty much ended in a situation where T1 had the better position on an objective and basically just botched the setup and the conversion on a smite. Like there was that first game, the Varos Renata Sion. It's like there was the Elder Dragon fight, which it pretty much just lost because Doran decided to hit the bot wave when it just didn't matter. So they just lost position. GenG face checked everything, and then Zio could just line up her feathers in a very, very easy way. But technically, T1 was in a very, very good position because they were first in River, and the main thing was just such a simple mistake of Doran showing on the bot wave that just made them collapse, because leading up to that point, they had Soul, they got winning fights, they found good angles, the Varos Renata combos looking really, really good. There was a lot of things to be just happy about when it came to T1. It seemed like that picture of T1's draft is exactly where I believe most of us looking at this T1 roster kind of imagine them. It's like, oh, you have Sion into Jace, you have, Faker playing some of his classics, and then you have like Gumayushi, Varos, Renata, that's perfect. Range support. It's like you have all the strengths and all the, the layers of what you would hope from the best version of what this T1 roster could be. But the strangest thing is, for the longest time, Owner has just been the best performer on this team.
Yeah.
But in this series, he was kind of a letdown. There's been a big discussion over who should be like the best, like all-pro jungle, and I think that Canyon was like very, very discredited just because GenG is winning, and people are just saying, "Oh, Chovy." But Canyon has had like a tremendous split, which is a big part of why we are so excited about GenG, because usually it's like Canyon like phones it in, like kind of chills.
I think that's also why people don't think he's the best Yamato, because the narrative is he doesn't try in regular season, isn't it?
But this one, he really, really like kicked it up a notch and has been like there. Like but in this series, like all the smite, I think there was like 5-6 smite situation where you kind of almost, lean towards thinking that owner should win those, because it's like it's owner, this is his area. But in the end, like Canyon is also, known for being very, very clutch in those situations too. But he was winning out like every smite scenario time and time again. The weird thing for me about GenG, but maybe in a fucked up way, also like a positive thing, because I feel like Chovy is playing in such a loose way.
Oh, it's way more ballsy now. But thinking that game one when he did that like re-engaged mid, like that fight should have been over. Normal Chovy would never have done that. Mate.
He is so
this guy's
loose.
Going for it.
It's almost as if he, I don't know, like he was in a sweat lodge and he like discovered like a new version of himself or something, because in winter the whole narrative was, oh, this guy's just playing TFT, because you could see his account, he had like 500, 600 TFT games, he does play solo queue, he looks less precise. And how I imagined was that Fearless might be like the best thing possible for Chovy, because it would break him out of the mold of who he is as a player. Because historically, he always did this thing where it was very clear that I'm going to first pick this. If that's banned, I'm going to pick this. And I'm going to ban, it's going to pick this. It's like really 1, 2, 3. Like I don't know how many series we've watched of Chovy where he played the five games of the same champ. It was his worst series playing 5 games of the same champ, and also his best, like the Azir and of course Spring. And now there's this looseness about him, because the way he played in game was so disrespectful. I think if Faker actually was in good form and was hitting any of these charms that should be landing, I think Chovy could have had one of those games that he had early in the split where he just went like 0-7 on Azir.
I know what you mean. He was literally almost daring Faker to catch him with a charm, like just sidestepping and juking, and it was ridiculous. Like I know what you mean. Like if you turn the inputs off, you never get that Chovy.
It was completely disrespectful. And to think, it's like the conversation before this game is like, oh, if they win this game, then they're on the 19-game win streak. They haven't lost a game. Oh, this is a record. We haven't seen this before. But they didn't seem to give a shit. And that's what's so spooky to be about GenG. When you have a conversation about GenG and they're like, yeah, Ruler is probably the weakest performer. It's like, what the hell? That's where we're at. The Ruler is the weakest performer. That's a scary thing to even mention if you are a fan of any of the other teams.
Oh, of course.
It's like in that...
Connected with that, Yamato, you said it on the past episodes. This is a great example. If people want to see how actually the Duro guy sort of lived up to the expectation, this is a great series too. Like, mate, he was probably the best player in this one. That guy's actually for real having some. For some reason, it was only last split. His first split, like a lot of rookies, he struggled. This split, he's been really good, actually, mate. Like, actually, I can forget that he's like the rookie. He's actually pretty good.
Oh, it's like now we are seeing a player that is just allowed to express himself mechanically, which is super cool. It reminds me so much of who Missing was for JDG, because everyone like I think everyone just after watching JDG 2024 after that 2023 year looked at Missing as like, what the hell is this? He can only win on Rakan. What the hell is going on? But there is a beauty in being able to just be a player that is plugged into a roster full of superstars, and you also managing to, of course, adapt to that. I think with the increase of performance of everybody else, streamlining the games, everyone being more precise on side, and Canyon being, just as good as he is now, Duro has an opportunity to just show how good he is mechanically, because for the longest time, there's just been a player that's been like top 3 in Korean ladder for such a long time. And that's an achievement that still, of course, matters. So GenG right now in this series, I do agree that it was very, very close. It was ridiculously close. And I thought that GenG would beat T1, much easier. But
you would think they would be the front runner and just bash them the whole time, mate. Especially like if you even start the series, T1's winning most of these fights. Like they're actually getting all the skirmishes. By the way, even Faker's playing quite well in some of these fights. Like, I know what you mean. I was watching it thinking, fuck, is this like the upset? And then amazingly, they managed to get 0-2. I don't know how, because if you watch these games, you'd think you at least get a game, for fuck's sake.
At least from T1 side, it's like even the game 2 draft, they ended up Doran Rumble. I think that's probably like his best champ. Like in that game 2, they tried to gank him over and over again. He gets a lot of information on the map. He dodges Pantheon ults. Like this is Doran in his best form, which I think from a community side, they don't appreciate a player that plays under that much jungle pressure and just survives, because play against Ornn, Pantheon as Rumble and going 0-0 and making Rumble ulting the right waves, getting information on enemy, like on jungle, to make sure that the crossplay happens. Like Doran did a fantastic job in this one. I'm happy that T1 have finally figured out this is the mold that we're going by. Gumayusi just playing strong lane AD, try to counter support as hard as you can, something they can play in isolation and just let Faker play his usual champs. Like it seems like T1 has figured out finally the recipe that makes sense for them, which I think is very, very good. But that game too, it's like they had that Nash angle that they took. They seem so timid about actually winning one positions. It's like thinking back at some of those nail biters that they were a part of against Damwon, or even the previous series against GenG. It's like they played some games that were ridiculously close when they shouldn't have been, and that's something that is so unique to this T1, because in the past it was like, oh, T1 has a lead, they know how to play out the Nashers, they're going to, if you get them to the team fights, they're going to perform. But with this T1 roster, it just isn't the same, because that Nash take, it ended up like if people just pull up that game and they see how in the end the Pantheons, the game 2, so Pantheon just stole the Nash, and basically it's absurd looking at that. What the hell was that noise? It was absurd looking at that, because in the end, all of T1 just ran away. Like everyone's going to look at that and see like Wukong lost a smite against Pantheon, but all of T1 just runs away under no threat. And there's a nervousness in terms of how they fight that I don't recognize T1 in. And I don't know if it's a question of, when they were damn good previous years, that were just really, really practiced together. They had the same, the kind of repetition that carries over, of course, when you play together for that long. And now all of the turmoil is kind of catching up to them. I'm not so sure what it is, but it is weird to see T1 in that spot, because the last thing I would ever attribute T1, I would never think T1 plays those situations out like a team that is inexperienced. That has never been like a T1 problem. T1, if you got them to 25, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, they would always compete against anybody in the world, regardless of how bad they looked in terms of their form. If they got to that point, you get Faker to that point, he's going to perform. But in this one, they just couldn't. GenG were just a lot more clutch in those situations. But I still think positive signs for T1, thinking to How Alive as an example, who lost to KT. They had a good series against DNF, but who really cares? I just think the race now towards who is going to be the second team next to GenG, if GenG of course wins the upper finals, because they are pretty much guaranteed to be in the top 2. The How Alive T1 conversation becomes a little bit more interesting again in terms of the potential of it.
No, by the way, I agree with what you said about Chovy as well. Like, in the same way as, if you remember, it was in the spring final last year where he had that game 5 where he made that mega ballsy as A player. That was unusual, though. That's not really Chovy's style. Like, I've always said Chovy's style is way more sort of controlled. It's like what you said about Inspired earlier. A lot of my favorite players like that, the Upsets and the Froggins of the world, they don't like to just gamble. They want to sort of know this is the correct move and then make the correct move. The difference is, I agree with you, Chovy now has like opened up his game. Where, mate, if you want to use an MMA analogy, before it's like he was like some like ultimate wrestler guy who could fucking like just ground and pound you all day. Now it's like he's fucking letting his hands go and knocking people out, mate. Because I actually thought some of the moves he made in this series on that game 1 were fucking baller, mate. He had some sick ultimates. Like put it this way, fucking about 10 years ago, Phoenix did one of those ultimates and people still were talking about it 5 years later. Chovy in one game was doing like 2 or 3 of those, mate. They were fucking baller. And these were ones where if he didn't make those plays, they would actually have just slowly bled out. Like I said, they were losing some of the skirmishes and the fights. But this is also the other thing. The meta right now is so wired that like it's not really about how many kills the other team gets. If you just stay vaguely close in gold, when you get to like 25 minutes, you can just have the one fight you win that wins you the game. That's still a thing of the current meta. So in some ways, I know what you mean. For T1, It's like I don't want to totally diss them because they were in a winning position actually against what I think is the best team in the world. But on the other hand, so I guess on the one hand, I'll say it good for GenG that they came back in. They showed they don't have to just be a front runner, etc. Although, by the way, I actually saw online someone do quite a funny tweet about front running, which is whenever people use that as like a diss, like you're just a front runner. This guy said, look, he said a swear word because it was someone black, but like, pretty swear, I'll just translate it. He essentially said, like, well, if the problem is that they're a front runner, why are you letting them get in front of you all the time? It's like it's a pretty good line, right? It's true. Why are they always in front of you? You know, by your own logic, put them behind, then you win, don't you? But guess what? The joke is, it's obviously harder to fucking do that than say it, isn't it? There's a reason why they're excellent. But first of all, this is a good comeback. But I'm with you on the T1 one, though, because here's what's disturbing about this loss to me, mate, is, first of all, it was only like the last week they had that like 3-game series against Brion again. Like, why is Bro so hard for you to play? So that's already disturbing me. But the bigger issue is this, Yamato. This isn't even comparing like some Orcs cast thing. Oh, we're comparing this. No, if you even look at Spring, T1 was way better at fighting in Spring. Man, Spring, like, not only them, but Faker was doing an awesome fucking job in fights. Like, they actually looked like a strength of their team then. So I have to ask you this. It is the traditional question this year, but I have to reload that question. One in the chamber. It goes like this. I have to say, Yamato, this is an example of a series where I do think Gumayushi fans go too far. Because, you know, their whole take was like, he's getting like not enough scrim time. He doesn't get bro, he's been the starter now for weeks and weeks. He's had most of the games. I thought this was an example of a series where if I have to pick someone who didn't play that well, I thought he had some dodgy moments, mate. I thought he actually did struggle a little bit.
Okay, in my mind, that's like, Like I think in the Ash games there was a mistake. I remember in Varus there was like a fight where like I didn't like how he flashed. There's definitely definitely
these are his champions as well. Like that's another thing. I give them this. They're giving him his champions, mate. They're trying to set him up. Like it's not like they're making him play some weird shit.
Like for me, the contrast now. I try to make sure that don't compare. I don't make the mistakes that the fans do where we compare Gumayushi at his best, because definitely in regular splits, T1 has had issues in the past. Even with Zeus, it's like there's been moments where in regular splits they just don't look good. They ramp up during playoffs, and there's been moments where Gumayushi looks inconsistent. Like I do think if I compare this regular split Gumayushi where he is now in comparison to the start when he like was doing like lame mistakes, getting flashed on by Alistar, dying on Jinx, like that is a massive move up from there. But that was like legit in hell in terms of like his level. That was like probably some of the worst Gumayushi games we've ever seen in his entire career. But if I compare his current form to what we know of Gumayushi in like past regular seasons, I do think this is kind of where I would place him. Like I think this was, if I would blame and attribute like the loss to anybody here, I do think that it's weird in a way because Keria has been really, really consistent. I think he's just been doing super well, besides that one series where he played like Elise and Pantheon support. And Ashe, I believe it was Ashe support that he played, which looked very ugly, but he bounced back quick. But Owner and Faker, to me, were like the biggest question marks in terms of like performance. There's like many moments where I thought, oh, Faker, you need to hit the charm here. Like Chovy should have died here. I thought that maybe 8 times in that Azir game. I was like, Faker, you need to hit these. I was like, okay, Faker, you get him to 25 minutes, he's going to perform. And even in those moments, like kind of dashed into Xayah feathers, got one shot in the fight by Xayah. I think those things stood out to me more in terms of T1's performance. I thought Gumayushi was there. He had good fights. I wouldn't like attribute too much blame on Gumayushi for this one, because I think mostly like Faker and Owner were the ones who dropped the ball in my mind, especially with the level of responsibility that they've carried in some of the previous series. I thought that they had like the biggest underperformance here.
I already think the problem Hanwha Life had this split goes. GenG just looks much better than them and will beat them head to head. They are the second best team, but then as the second best team, this is what's made the LCK suddenly not look as hot, whereas the LPL has all those amazing like Nirvana group, Ascend group teams that are like all killing each other every week. Is you look at Hanwha Life, even though they were winning all those past series, they weren't looking impressive when they did it. And sometimes they'd even look a bit sluggish in like individual players. Bro, to lose to KT, if people don't know, this isn't even past years of KT where it's like, lol, pure shit. This is just a bad KT, mate. Like, isn't this kind of alarming to you that Hanwha Life lost this series, mate?
That's it was so strange because in the end, I just expect him to beat KT almost no matter what. was like how Alive's level currently kind of cements the idea of my whole opinion about LCK. Because for the longest time, this year in particular, I did think it was very easy to see that LCK's level is much better than LPL.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're finally at the point where like I can say that LPL level looks sometimes better even, and be fully honest, like it's not a crazy thing and crazy statement to say, especially with like D plus level, like Hanwha Life being like very inconsistent. And usually it's like how they win their games. It's like, oh, they make a mistake. They fall behind here. They fall behind here. Oh, wow, Zeus just triple killed them. It's like that's how they win their games. And you can get away with that to a certain degree. And maybe the problem is that they don't get challenged as much as some of like the LPL teams, because LPL is like, oh, you're gonna perform bad today? Well, fuck you. You're gonna lose to FPX. It doesn't matter how good you are. You're gonna lose to WE or NIP even. You're gonna lose to anybody in this top 10 group.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's a question of that, because Hanwha Life also in winter in regular split didn't look super impressive either. It's like they just kind of went by because they were in a better group. So maybe there's a context to that. But losing to KT should be unforgivable. It's like their roster. It's like you have BDD, and then you have Diokdam, who just hasn't performed well. Peter, who has found, he's doing better. Fair play to KT. It's like they have figured out that they should just lock his champions that he's been historically good on.
He was really good. I have to say, that was like a throwback series, mate. That was
it's like he's
fighting
back
this guy
to
was
form,
once hyped. This guy used to be a very hyped jungler. This is the reason why, yeah.
It kind of gave us that, the Cuz BDD vibes that we had back in, what was it, 2023, it's like, oh, look at that.
KT, you mean, right?
Yeah, like in KT more recently. So it's like, I was like, okay, this is they're finding form again, but still they don't have good enough players to be able to should be able to win against Hanwha Life. But it comes also back to Hanwha Life's preparation. I just feel like it's so dated. They picked the Ambessa blind, which I think is something that is very outdated. Ambessa's win ratio and Prior has fallen off a cliff, and then they ended up on Lucian Elise as a combo. Lucian's making a resurgence with Milio, Brom, Nami, but Lucian Elise. This is some crazy fan fiction. That maybe Kazi would be writing. This is what is Lucian Elise doing in the same lane? Come on now, come on. This is horrible. But I thought it would be fine still, because that's probably like on paper one of the worst Javan games to play. Just so everybody listens can have an idea. It's like he played Javan against Lucian, Elise, Ambessa, Sejuani, Azir. There's very little compositions that are more slippery than that, and still they managed to put it together. I'm a big fan of BDD. I think this is a player that's just been jailed with bad rosters for such a long time, and he's had a loyalty to KT. I just hope BDD is paid well. That's all I hope. Because if BDD was on one of the LPL teams with like strong rosters, this guy, he would have achieved greatness.
But bearing in mind, I know KT as an org do have money, but as far as I know, it's more like the SK type approach, where it's like you either give it to a specific player or you just wait for certain years you want to load up, and the other years you do them in max. If I had to guess, he's almost certainly the player they pay in that team. It looks like he's the one they've sort of given the bag to. Like he's the Larson of their team. The difference is he actually plays well in the game as well. No, here's the other thing. The other reason why that series was so disturbing to me, Yamato, is because in the games that Hanwha lost, they didn't just lose. They were actually getting, for real, just shit on like the whole way through. Like they're just behind the whole fucking game, just losing all the fights, getting actually like. And by the way, like some of them, like I think maybe it was like game 2. Bro, how fast is that fucking game? Like it feels like it's just over instantly. Like what? Because the other thing about Hanwha to me was they have been a team that aren't the great front runners and don't just smash everyone. But normally, one thing if you think of last split that was awesome was they were super clutch. Like they were the guys who could be behind but could hang in the game. This was actually just fucking bad play, mate. This is the worst series of the year for them.
The main thing for me when I look at this team is Delight as a player. I think in certain contexts, he's the best player, like best support in the world, for sure. But when you only isolate when he plays range champions,
yes,
it looks awful. Like I just don't like it at all.
Yeah.
Whether it's Elise or Bard, I just don't think he is remotely close to the player he is on his Rel and Rakan, or Alistar even, like any of the melee engaged supports really.
Yes.
He's just one of the greatest ever at it. But the range supports, it looks iffy, because these 2 KT games that they lost was him, of course, on Bard, and then the other one on Elise. Like those are circumstances where Like I just don't see him, just be a top level at. And maybe How Life is in a position where they want to experiment a little bit, because obviously coming into Fearless, that's something that is going to be challenged, and this is something that players are aware of. But also at the same time, in the context of supports, I feel like this is a split in the LCK where the amount of good LCK supports is like, holy, it's like we've never had this many good LCK supports playing at the same time. Like even Kellen is fucking performing out of his mind, which is fun to see, because I do feel like that's a position that's been lacking. But usually, when I think about like LCK supports, I realize that usually for every region, there's like 2 supports dominating, and the rest just not really keeping up or understanding the game at the same level. But usually that's just a consequence of understanding macro and knowing where to be, because that's half the job. But now in the LCK, supports are actually doing well and breaking hands when they get the chance to do so.
No, by the way, I actually also do think, like, put it this way, Yamato, I don't think anyone's bingo card said KT beats Hanwha Life with Docdam 16-1-4 performance on Callista. Like, that sounds like a sentence that's like you've mashed together a bunch of other sentences and no one ever actually said that out loud. Like, I actually just had to say that sentence out loud. Against Viper, no less. Viper. But whatever, we'll put that one out of mind for now.
It's like one of those fridge magnets things, like you just put them together.
Just like you just smashed it together. It just didn't make sense, does it? But whatever. By the way, I don't even put that much of it on the KT roster side, because I agree. I also think Cos just had to absolutely smurf to win that series, mate. It's ridiculous. So, but fair play to him. It's why he's actually a player I've often struggled with in the LCK, because if you remember when he first came in with BDD and he was on that Longzhou team, he was like exactly what you'd expect from a solo queue player, Matt. Like, he had some hands, but he could also make really bad decisions. And the problem he had was, I think he's the one that got scapegoated in the later years. And people did look at him and sort of be like, he's a bit of a meme, isn't he, lol, or whatever. But he's done this a few times. Like you said, in 2023, when their team was the #1 team and was barely ever losing. Like, he actually has had splits where for really contended for, like, best jungler in LCK, which is, by the way, you can't trip over and do that. That's a really fucking hard role to ever be near the top of. So he's one of those players that's hard to evaluate, because you can even see they've done this in past splits where you had this bad roster, but still he could be good in the same way as BDD could be good. So I don't know. It's a tough player to evaluate for me, mate. He's also had a long career at this point in time. Like, that, it's actually way longer than you think. Remember, Longzhou was back in fucking 2017, guys. Like, he's actually a mega veteran at this point in time.
Kind of feel like what always comes to mind when I think about Kaz's career, it's kind of followed a very similar trajectory in terms of what kind of a player he is. It's so similar to Peanut to me, where in the beginning just like mechanical demon, and then was became the player who was known for just like slamming Sejuani every game possible with the pocket Nidalee pick. Like that the biggest issue for him in that 2023 KT was that he was known for literally playing like 3 champs. It was like Nidalee, Viego, Sejuani, and anything beyond that was like, oh shit, this is not the same player anymore. And to see him sticking to his guns, I think it's cool when that maturity, especially with the jungle role, I like to see that trajectory for a player. We had this conversation about Razok the last time, is that he's still playing as someone that is just pulled out of solo queue and is a mechanical demon. I want to see that maturity come through and them grow to be like almost a leader in the game that can drive the game through others and has recognized like the patterns to victory through consistency. And I see that in Kaz. Like it's good to see old school work, and I think that's amazing. Kaz should have been the person Team Liquid imported. That would have been better than UmTi.
I also do think as well that people are really bad at forgetting like what the beginning of people's careers are like. Because, I mean, we've made this point in the past, but the 2 most obvious roles that go this way are mid lane and jungle. What happens is all the guys that start as like, I'm the mid lane melee player who's a demon. If they get it, here's the thing, Yamato, you either don't make it and you're a forgotten statistic and we don't even remember that you ever were a player in the league, or you just end up like, think about my boy Jensen. My boy Jensen went from, he used to play with you and be a demon on Fizz who may or may not have been DDoSing people, terrorizing solo queue, to at the end of his career, he's like, just pick me Orianna and get the fuck out my lane. Like, that's all he was doing at the end. It's the same with junglers. They all start out as like, check out this Lee Sin move, going in on the queues. And at the end, they're just like, let's see if I can hit a Sejuani ult. That's what you went. That is, but here's the thing, though. There's a totally logical reason why Yamato. I know people have made this point before, but it does make sense. The problem is what you learn is the folly of being young is you don't think about the risks. You just go, I want to get the crazy knockout punch and have the big moment. When you get later in your career, you want to ensure you win. You want to make the game almost like systemized, where you can actually know, like, this is the correct move. This is going to help in this way. Like, essentially, you don't want to make like wasted moves or go for silly gambles. You want to make like the surefire moves. It's obvious why mid laners, I've always said this, the reason mid lane was always OP is because the lane is so small, and especially until support started ganking, you could just almost guarantee you get your CS. So you don't even have to have solo bolo kills like top laners. You could just get your item, and then once you have your item, if you are an Azir and Orianna, you're going to be really fucking powerful. Spoiler, my boy Larson literally did this like 4 or 5 years ago to great success. Like, he used to win like 3/4 of his games just doing this, just farming upon Orianna and Azir, just go into, and then in the team fight, just do your ult, basically. That's it. So I don't blame them, but I agree with you. I also think it's cool, though, when you get a game like this Jarvan one, where the guy who used to have the sick mechanics just flexes them out. Because that's the other thing. They never remember. Like, the maddest one is the one I referenced earlier, where I said, like, about the transition. People will never remember Smithy used to be the Lee Sin player. And that seems mental, because all you think now is of just him behind in the game getting a Skarner pull. But, like, for real, he was the Lee Sin player. But that just shows, like, this weird maturation process that takes place for League of Legends pros in certain positions, right?
Yeah. Or even like Jankos. Like, Jankos was a
mechanical
demon.
By the way, not just Lee Sin, his Elise used to be fucking unbelievable, mate. He was godlike on that. Yeah, for sure.
It's like Jankos was the player, because when I was working with Jankos, we had the problem that he couldn't think like macro-wise and see the big picture. It was always like kill, which is crazy to think about, because now he's
just Yamato means back in Rockat like 10 years ago. I thought you meant for a second. I thought you meant like the Roddy side. No.
The Roddy
I was going to say, holy shit, like, okay. That one is 10 years ago.
10 years ago, okay, bro. Right. It's 10 years ago. That's kind of insane.
Well, good.
10 years ago, bro. Damn. I feel old as shit.
Shout out to Jankos for even still being played. Think of all the people like that team that aren't even here anymore. They're all gone. It's all just like the fucking Back to the Future picture, all faded. Nuke Duck's off, coaching. By the way, that will always make me laugh, Yamato. Even though I will say, I actually talked to Nuke Duck like 10 years ago. He's a really smart player about the game, and he's actually quite a good like captain type figure to say, like, we're going to do this now. But I actually thought back then, I don't know what he's like with you and Rockat. His personality to me back then wouldn't have been a great like coach figure though, bro. He was actually very blunt. He was really fucking like I never found it. He wasn't a very polite player, put it that way to me. Like, he's the sort of person who just tell you what to fucking do because he's the best player. Like, so I'm actually kind of impressed that he himself made his own weird maturation where he's transformed into a coach, and he's had a lot of success as a coach now. Fair play.
Honestly, I think that he carries that same level of bluntness now in his coaching. And I think it just depends on. It's always like
he's got non-American players. Then he's just got all Europeans and Koreans. Makes sense then, I guess. Right? Okay,
that
makes sense.
Blippo inspired. I think these are just the perfect guys to be like, you're inting. Like, what the fuck are you doing? You're dumb. Do this instead.
I'll tell you a story. I always remember. It'll never leave my mind because it is baller. I can't lie. Remember back when they were on Lemon Dogs and it was Nuke Duck in like season 3. And if you remember, famously in that split was the split where this is where Riot began that trend of like overtuning assassins going towards worlds to give it like a fun meta for the fakers of the world to go crazy on, right? And at the time, what happened was it was back when Kassadin was that nightmare pick where if you had Kassadin in EU where all the super mid players play, all you did was just get that mid rolling and he would just kill everyone on the map and just destroy the whole game. And what was hilarious was I remember a story that Tabs, the AD carry from the Netherlands of Lemon Dogs, told me where he basically said that like he was coming out of base and there was like a massive wave bot and then he was like, I'm just going to go out and get this wave, and Nuke Duck was like, no, you're going to go mid and I'm going to go take that wave. And Nuke Duck's whole shit was just like, I'm the star, I'm like the main character basically. But here's the thing, it worked back then. So I know what you mean. I guess in that sense maybe he has just been selective with who he chooses to coach, because you are right, if he has sort of picked very good profiles that essentially, like, the joke is somebody like Inspired would even like that sort of like, you know, a little bit of back and forth and to challenge you and to have, like, if you were actually like the super duper nice guy coach, I don't think that would even fit with Inspired as much, you know.
No, for sure. Bro, I think that season 3 Lemon Dogs roster, what Nuktak managed to do with that roster is extremely underrated. Because I would go so far to say in that summer split, Nuktak was the best European player.
Yeah,
like, I think he was
really
the MVP
good
of everything. It's like, I know the story of what went down.
At the time, he actually looked better than Bjergsen. He looked as good as Expecke and all these like legendary players that were gods. Yeah, absolutely.
he was smurfing out of his mind. Like this was Mithy, like a rookie split coming into it, but rookie was like Mithy was insanely shaky in the beginning.
He was also another godlike mechanical player, believe it or not, fans, for real.
Yeah.
Like he actually was cracked out. His thresh was sick. Yeah, of course. It doesn't seem real now, but it is. If you think of the end of Orgy, you'd never believe it, but he was actually cracked.
And then it's like they had that finals against, I believe, Fnatic in the end. And that was the finals that they should have won, but they just didn't because players were hungover, sick, and didn't sleep. And this was just the beginning days of esports. Fnatic just had players that dealt with hangovers way better. They were party smurfers.
No, I always used to actually say that's the joke. Is people hear that story, Yamato, they go, and Lemon Dogs was out partying the night before. I'll bet fucking Expecto was next to him passing him the shots, mate. Like, the difference is, as you say, Yamato, he was on some, like, Ronaldinho shit where he could still turn up and score 3 goals. Like, some people are just built different, mate. Like, that's one of the moments where if you're the rookie, you're supposed to actually go, you know what? Actually, I'll put this shot down. I haven't even leveled up in this area of the game. He's a master at the game in the server and outside. Like, he's fucking juggling, like, how do I do, like, 1.5 scrims of practice with 6 shots and then these 3 girls? How am I going to make all that work? And he was making it all work and then just going, oh, well, just leave with the championship then. He was just winning every fucking split as well. It was mental, wasn't it? It was nuts. What, by the way, if you were ever to make a documentary about an EU player, it's got to be Expecto. Come on, mate. Because as well as all this, by the way, one of the reasons why in EU this was never said on stream, it was very rarely even mentioned on podcasts, is because that charisma is real in real life. He is one of the most magnetic players you would ever walk into a room. Like if you see Expecto, mate, everyone loves this guy. Everyone. The joke is you almost just go, that Expecto, and you let him get away with it, even though you said she was just partying and fucking around and then just coming in and fucking doing whatever he wanted in the game. But he was just too good. I thought that's why I said that joke a few years ago. I said it, by the way, in the hopes of actually motivating Humanoid, but the problem is Humanoid really doesn't give a fuck, apparently. When Humanoid had their bad times in your team, in that Fnatic, where on paper they had the chance to win, I said, mate, you aren't Expecto, motherfucker. If these stories are true that you're not always trying your hardest and you're not always playing all the solo queue, Expecto did that, mate, but then he would win the split at the end. You do it and then come second or third. That's not cool. That story's only cool, like the Wonder Player WoW one, if you then win. Then it becomes like a city, like, oh, that's crazy. How did he do that? If I said to you, this guy mainly just plays WoW and you won't believe it, but he came third, it's like, that's not a cool story. Why didn't he fucking stop playing WoW? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't work then, does it, Humanoid? So, like, he didn't think that one through, mate. You can only say, like, I don't give a fuck. If you then win, then it's gangsters. Fuck, that's like Duncan CS. Who gives a shit? Yeah. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, what does Donk do? You need to loop me in.
Basically,
does he do crazy shit?
Essentially, he's like sort of the faker of CS. Like you have to realize, within his first year, he was the best player in the game, and like every tournament that his team makes the final, he's basically like the MVP. But the problem is, he does this crazy thing, Yamato, where even though anyone who knows CS, if you watch his play, it's unbelievable how good he is. But he always talks like, "Nah, I'm just all right. It's mainly like my team setting me up and helping me." And then when they just won this tournament now, where they didn't have the other top 3 teams, he won and didn't even smile because he was like, yeah, but the way we played to win, though, we wouldn't have beaten those other top teams. It's like, what? Like, but that's just his fucking swag, mate. His swag's just like, yeah.
Swag, man.
Yeah, he's got some cool. He's got some like Mamba mentality shit going on. Yeah, it's kind of mild.
Right. Okay. How long has he been playing?
Oh, he literally debuted last year, mate.
Oh, damn. Okay.
But this way, if you don't know, if you ever want to get back into CS, this is one of the players to watch because essentially he plays as like the entry bro. And he's the best player in Counter-Strike. And his stats are the best in Counter-Strike. Like, put it this way, last year, his first big tournament was IM Katowice. He won the whole event, and they lost, like, one map or something meant like that. And he was, like, the greatest. It was, like, the greatest statistical event ever played by a player in CSGO or CS2.
Damn.
Yeah,
damn.
No, this guy's unbelievably cracked out there. It's why I actually say he is comparable to, like, a Faker-type figure. Because if you're off on year one, you're just the best. That almost never happens. Like, put it this way, this is why I made fun of the Calist thing. All these dickheads, you might think they've actually got me because they don't even understand the point I was ever making. They all go, yeah, even you say Calista's really good. I don't say he's like fucking top 2 in the world, you moron. I say he's really good in LEC. And even in LEC, Calista isn't like the clear best player. I'd even argue Upset's better than him at his position right now. The difference is the Donk guy, for real, was the best player in Counter-Strike. It was nuts, mate. I've never seen it happen in that way as well, because as I say, he essentially doesn't play the role that should even carry like that. Like, that would be the equivalent of someone, like, at least Faker played mid lane. This would be the equivalent of someone playing, like, fucking support and being the greatest player of all time. Like, what? Like, or jungler or so. I guess jungler's more probably because it's like the gank role. Like, how the fuck are you supposed to be the best and get the best number of the best kills? So, yeah. Anyway, that's just an advert for CS there. If you ever want to watch a play, check out Donk. He's fucking cracked out, mate.
Okay, I will do.
Right,
What
by
else
the
do we
way,
have for LCK? What's up?
yeah, what else about LCK? What else?
Oh, it's
about
like the big one, right? It's like we have GenG Hanwha Life, and like that's GenG should just be
that's in 2
favorite.
days, yes. Which,
GenG
by the
should
way,
just be favorite.
oh, obviously. I mean, at this point in time, like, this is the big match, basically. Because, listen, despite what we just said about KT, I'm sorry, I refuse to believe that, let me see. Oh, no, the last 2 games for GenG is Hanwha Life and then DRX. Right, look, I don't care what anyone thinks. They're definitely beating DRX. So if they can beat Hanwha Life, they can actually do the undefeated split, mate. It's totally plausible.
Crazy. Absolutely nuts. Holy shit.
Right there, it's right on the table, mate.
It's
I might know you'd favour them too. They should beat Hanwha. Yeah, they should beat them.
As like contextualizing also the record, only losing 3 maps.
Oh, it's nuts. Remember, one of the things in LPL and LCK is normally it's why it's hard to make bets for 2-0 games, Yamato, because normally teams don't really care if they go 2-1 or 2-0. In fact, I've always said famously, I do think the LPL teams, if you're BLG and you're playing like a bad team in like a year ago, you like win the first game, and then in game 2 you experiment with your draft and you do ego picks and you fuck around because you know you can still win game 3 and you win the series anyway. The difference is like to actually do it this way, bro, it's the dominance. Like you say, they've lost 3 games out of 31 played. Like, that's mind-blowing shit. That's unbelievable. And if you ever go and look, by the way, those losses, I think, are all at the beginning of the split as well. Like, this team is, like you said, they're on a crazy game win streak as well. Like, it's actually quietly going to be one of the best splits ever if they pull it off.
And it's also to just think, if you just isolate their game 3s, it's like some of their best games. They seem so angry in those game 3s, whether it was, I don't know, was it Fear X or Bro?
That you forced them to go to a game 3. It's like that scene, I forget what movie it's in. There's some like, what the fuck was it from though? It's some comedy movie where like a guy, you know, it's like in a like Jackie Chan type Bruce Lee scenario where, you know, you're fighting in the dojo and then you start bleeding and you're like, you made me taste my own blood. That's like what GenG's like, bro. It's like they're actually pissed that you're making them even come out for game 3 because they are actually they're the team that should do that Western joke that everyone does in NEC, but they've overplayed it. Where you go like, we had dinner reservations at 7 or whatever. Like that's how they play, mate. They're just getting in and out there like 20 minutes and fuck off. Like
this team is scary, man. It's like the only knock I had at them was their greedy drafting will catch up to them. But it seems like it's not yet. It's like, I don't know. Maybe in the 1BO5 they will play. I guess we can jump to that conversation.
Let's do it. Because here's the problem, Yamato. One, you actually entered this inadvertently. Earlier in the split, Yamato actually praised the format of LCK. And it turns out, like a pleb, he didn't actually click and read the text. And if he'd have read the text, it's the opposite. We actually need to diss the format because they've created a playoff format without a final. Bro, listen, I don't want to seem like I'm too much of a stickler for the rules, Yamato, but are you ready? I'm not actually watching LCK only to watch who qualifies to MSI. I also want to see who wins LCK, who's number 1 in Korea. Like the idea that we're going to skip that match, that's essentially the match I'm most hyped for. That's the match I want to see the most. And that's the one game we're not going to see. Because essentially, if you don't know, guys, they've done it like a gauntlet. Where even though it'll look, if you don't read the qualification part, it'll look like a bracket. It isn't. It's one of those qualification ones where the one who loses the upper one, the winner is already qualified. So there is no final. And the loser, that's almost like the loser bracket final essentially against the last chance team that's coming for third. Like, so the saddest thing is there's going to be no first place match. I mean, there is in a way because like sort of the upper bracket one is, but it is and it isn't, if you know what I mean. Like that won't feel like a number 1 position, you know. And it won't have all the things I associate. You won't be in the stadium lifting the trophy with that fucking guy going crazy, etc. That's what you cast a dong Jun or Wednesday. Like you want all that shit. You want like the tradition of LCK.
It's like I made the assumption that, you know, like if in a world where you're cutting costs, the finals is the last thing you want to cut, man. Like, bro, this is the whole point. And I'm like also pissed because in the context of, it's like, oh, they said at the beginning of the split, Like, I already hate the fact that LCK Cup statistics has nothing to do with LCK. I think
If
that's
you don't know,
bullshit.
guys, that is real. They are pretending in Korea LCK Cup is almost like Kesper Cup, and it doesn't count towards like winning a split and stuff. Yeah, it's wild, isn't it?
And
Isn't that
now
wild?
this split, right? It's like GenG, let's say they win this BO5, and then let's say in 3 years we discuss this. Like, no, they didn't
Yep.
win the split. There was no
Yep.
finals. That doesn't count as a championship for Chovy in comparison to this player. It's like, oh, it doesn't count. It's like Canyon didn't win the split. That wasn't a split. That was just MSI qualification. They got
As
second
you
place.
say, you only win one series. Like, one of the best things about the format, even in last split, is it's double elim. You have to win like at least something like, don't you have to win like a minimum of 2 BO5s? I think it was maybe even 3. Like, that was a baller format, mate. You saw the rematches. I was fucking sick. I was loving that last split. That playoffs was really entertaining.
Yeah, I don't know why they decided to do this. I guess it's just extremely disappointing. I was excited for this playoff format because I never expected in a million years that they would cut it short. It's like the whole point is the finals. And I
Yes,
was hoping
agreed.
that we get a world where we get 2 times How My Life versus GenG or T1 in there,
Absolutely.
some shape or form. Because now this will just feel empty. And I think in the context of like framing what this is going to be for player careers, it will just become so much more challenging to convey how dominant GenG was. If all they do is win one BO5 and there's no finals, like how are we supposed to, explain to the plebs how good GenG was? Like unless they win MSI, it's just not going to be, there's not going to carry the same level of pedigree, which I think is just extremely disappointing. Like that cool graphic of Faker's all his LCK wins. Like how do we make that comparison? It's like the same. We had the issue in the LEC, but in the opposite direction, where Yike has more championships than Jankos already. I think almost that is better than this shit, because in the end, it's like, let's say GenG is just the best team in the world the entire time, and then we lose the LCK finals at the end of summer. And then people are going to say, well, all this didn't matter. There's no trophy. There's no metalware. There's no hardware here. It's like, oh, well, I guess that's what LCK has set us up for. Just years of pain, reiterating history.
And also, I'll just reference it for the millionth time, but it'll always be one of my principles of esports I explain. In general, I'm also just not a fan of gauntlet formats, because it means if you're number one in the regular season, right? Here's the problem. I do count regular season, but other people are extremists. They're like, yeah, because it's not the most important, it doesn't matter at all, which is like, no, to me, you've just explained it. It shouldn't be the most important, but it's gradation, isn't it? Like, it's still a good match. It's still a real match. Like, if you played Handball Live T1, it's still a match that matters. There's bragging rights on the line, etc. But my biggest problem is this. I hate formats in general where you skip playoff rounds, because I always give this example. Think of any sport that you enjoy. Think of when Messi and Ronaldo were the best football players, or fucking Tom Brady played in the NFL, or pick any player you want, LeBron, Kobe, Michael Jordan. When those players play, part of their career is actually watching them play like the first round matchup of the playoffs where they shit on someone. And even though, yes, they're always going to win that game, probably in like basketball, you win like 4-0 or whatever, right? You want to see, though, like epic, the greatest player ever, styling on people. You don't want him to just sit in the final and wait for whoever comes to challenge him like a Kung Fu movie. Like, you actually want to see him pop off and show his skills. So I also hate that, because essentially, if GenG does what they're supposed to do, Yamato, there's a real world where they just like do a perfect season, play one BO5. By the way, God forbid Hannibal Life comes in, shit, it's a 3-0, and then they're just off. And then I don't even get to see like 2 extra series of trophy. I just have to sit and wait for MSI. Like, what's that? That's nonsense. Like, you think of some of the great matches at Worlds and LC, and some of these matches were quarterfinals or semi-finals. You wouldn't want people skipping to the final. That'd be insane.
100%, man. But it's pain, man. It's pain. That's all it is. I'm just, once again, it's like I'm waiting for the delayed community reaction, because I'm in shock, man. I'm
It seems
really,
like no
really in
one's
shock.
commented on it publicly. I know what you mean. I haven't seen it anywhere.
I was also very late on it. Like, Dom pointed it out to me. I was like, what the
Right.
hell? It's like, bro, like, in the end, it's like both of the problems that the LCK Cup had and now this format, they're so solvable. What's the argument? Like, what's the
Yes.
actual argument for no finals? It just doesn't make any sense. Maybe.
You know what the problem is, Yamato? I'll tell you right now what the problem is. You said it earlier. Everyone in LCK just pocket watching, just caring about the money, isn't it? Trying to keep their finances under control. Well, I'll tell you what, if you're pocket watching, why not get a wonderful Ridge wallet like this? That's where you could put your money. And you know what? Unlike the budget of LCK, it can stretch. It can stretch and accommodate other things that are better. Like if you don't know, the way this wallet works is it has this like fabric here that stretches out. So if you only had like say 3 cards, it would be really tight and they wouldn't fall out. But it can fit up to 12 cards. I on the back choose to have like this thing here where I can put like bonus cards and stamped cards where you get buy 10 of these things and you get the one for free and all that jazz. I put those in the back, but you can also put like a clip if you want it to go on your belt or a bag or something like that. You can also, by the way, get a money tray. If you are a boomer and you want coins, you can have a money tray that goes in the back that fits like your euro coins in or your dollars or your pounds or whatever they might be. It also has like all 50 plus colors and styles. I just choose a basic ass blue one, but I'm not the guy who's into mad aesthetics, etc. But you can choose all sorts of different styles and things. What does yours look like? Do you have it with you?
Mine arrived today, actually. Mine arrived today. I got this one. Boom.
Oh, you went for sort of like a shaded color one. Okay, that looks cool. Yeah. That looks quite smart. Also, by the way, if people don't realize, this is why it's a great gift, not only for yourself, by the way, to look better, but it's actually a great gift for like a dad and uncle. It's another one of those quality of life ones where I'm pretty sure everyone's dad and uncle's like me. They have an old boomer wallet made out of leather that they've got way too much stuff stuffed into. You've got like 50 coupons for like a shop you're never going to go to that doesn't even exist from 12 years ago, but it's 25% off and, bring the kids and they eat for free. So what you do is buy them one of these, tell them, listen, chuck all that shit, mate. You'll find out you don't need it all. This is way smaller in your pocket. Look at my hand. Look how small this wallet is. Like I used to have a wallet the size of my hand.
I'm surprised,
yeah. Like it's actually amazing how small it is. And that's also another cool thing. You actually start to enjoy that it's reasonably sized in your pocket. You don't have that thing where when you sit down in like jeans, your pocket's like bulging like fucking some out of Alien or something that's going to burst out or some shit. So I think it's a banger. It also has all extra features, by the way. Like if you want, you can get like a Ridge air tag that you can put on it. So if you lose your wallet, you can find it again. They've got all sorts of things in there. Also, by the way, they have free shipping and a 99-day risk-free trial with a lifetime warranty on their products. You can't really say it fairer than that. So I actually think it's a banger. I told you, I actually got one as a sponsorship like 4 or 5 years ago, and I've loved it ever since. It's genuinely one of those like small quality of life upgrades I enjoy. And as I say, for someone like a dad or an uncle or something, I think it's actually a really great gift to buy them. Like, they won't think to buy it themselves, but I think they will appreciate it when you buy it for them. So right now, even better, they've got a huge Memorial Day sale. So you can get up to 40% off at ridge.com/SI. Easiest to remember. Somebody can say SI. Just head to ridge.com/SI to see their biggest sale of the year. After you purchase, you know what's going to happen. They're going to say, where did you hear about us? Please support us, not only by buying yourself this lovely wallet, but saying that it's us, LFN, Summoning Insight, Yamato, whatever, say it, whatever you want. That's who sent you. Tell them that we sent you. Enjoy the product. Shout out to everyone who supports us. Keep your money safe. Keep it all nice. Also, by the way, it has that thing on where it like blocks digital pickpocketers and stuff. I don't even know how that tech works. That's like Mission Impossible.
Well, that scares the hell out of me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I believe it exists. It's all good. So anyway, shout out to everyone who purchased those. I've had this for a long time. I think it's baller pussy. Also, as an aside, they have a similar thing for keys as well, by the way. That's like a smaller thing that you can put like 6 keys in, make some not jiggle and make a sound and stuff. And also that similarly can put a clip on. Anyway, thank you to Ridge Wallet. Let's talk about LPL. Or as I call it, every week, much to the chagrin of Faker and T1 fans, the best league in League of Legends. Bro, I'm going to say it for the millionth time because I'm so bored of how many years I had to go through those hard schedules. I fucking love watching the LPL, mate. I love it. Like, the only one thing I don't like is I do a lot of betting, and you can imagine, oh boy, do they fuck my life up in the betting world. Because, bro, I can't ever get a break. Like, I'll give you an example. Today, I've just been watching all these last few weeks, Yamato. Weibo Gaming can't fucking buy a win off anyone. Meanwhile, FPX is all dangerous. Oh, no, don't worry. Weibo. Quick 2-0. Fuck Thorin. Fuck his bets. Fuck the numbers you get. So anyway, and here's the thing. On the one hand, I love it, Yamato. I do love that you have every week, literally, when I open up Leaguepedia, I'm like, fuck, look at the game. Oh, wait, it's every week. Every week there's these games, mate. It's all the big names, the top 6, 7 teams I want, all playing each other. And even more, I'll tell you what, if you want thrilling outcomes, mate, this is like WWE or something. You can never know. Like, I'll give you examples. Not only like that Weibo one on a low level. How about JDG? every time you think these motherfuckers are dead, they just turn around and beat like one of the best teams in the league and win the game. And you're like, wait a minute. So which is it? Are they good or are they not good? Like, mate, this league is fucking crazy, bro. It's crazy. Everton with BLG. You know what? I bet you just thought it was safe to trust BLG finally, didn't you, Matt? You thought, you know what? It's been enough. Hey, it was just the jungler. You know what? It was weird. They've got the other guy. Beishwan's here now. They've integrated him. You know, I'm ready to believe. You know what? Not only did they get clapped, but I saw on Twitter, but I sadly agree. Mate, we have to have a fucking intervention for Bin. Bro, what's going on? This guy went from like a solid 2 years of being impossibly like the best top laner to like, mate, he's losing games on Jax now. That seemed impossible even a few months ago. What do you think about the LPL, BLG? Where do you want to go first? Where do you want to go?
Bro, I guess we can start with Billy. It's so weird because like JDG and Billy, it's like the last time we had the episode, it was like we had that full-on collapse JDG versus IG, right? Where JDG just looked like the most deflated team out of any major region. I've never seen someone get just like they were just like they were basically just take the win from us. IG,
yeah,
we were not even excited about IG beating them because JDG just looked horrible.
Yeah. And I didn't even get the gas. I didn't even go, hey, but RG's winning this play. I was like, it's just JDG. Who cares?
Yeah, JDG. Exactly. The way they played, I don't know. They were so insanely deflated. We were talking about how, like, Scout, this is like one of his most washed splits ever.
He heard you, mate, because he's back. He is fucking back home. He's back.
Scout is playing, but I have to say, with this JDG roster, like, if the two people I want to praise the most is just Shun and Paze. Bro, what's going on with Paze? I'm so happy because Paze, in my mind, was always like, oh, Nepo baby Paze. You know, he had this tutor, he had this tutor at home. He got sent into GenG right away, got to play with Lehens, Chovy, all that good stuff, straight off the bat. And the main question for me was like, oh, is Paze right now, Scout is underperforming. Like, who's going to step up to the plate? Shun plays good when he gets his kindred and so forth, but there needs to be more here. And Shun is like Paze is actually dropping bombs. He's actually, having games where you're like, ooh, this is a player now that can be in the conversation of like a best ADC in the world. Because I don't think it was justified to have him in that conversation because you needed to have moments where you getting items in the game gradually gives you confidence in winning the game. That is true for all the AD carries that everyone, of course, hypes up and praises, that they have an enormous presence in the game always. And Paze now on this JGG roster is stepping up big time. Like that Kalista performance that he had in terms of how he's executing in team fights, he is absolutely smurfing out of his mind. And I think that he is coming out of his shell. It's crazy to think that Paze is so early on in his career, and always with players like, for example, with the T1 players, most of them have been in the same team for such a long time. We don't know how they would function in different teams. Moving from GenG, that is was so widely successful, they won MSI, of course, and then moving to JDG, that's a new challenge in itself. And I think that sticking that landing is something that a lot of players don't manage to do. And I didn't think that Paze would do it in such beautiful form. And now in the LPL, it just seems like he's really finding a new layer to himself. I really, really enjoy how Paze is playing. Shun as well. It's like we talked about Tarzan and Kanavi, how good they've been in the league, but Shun is also making arguments for himself for being like the best performing jungler in the league. Like when he's playing Nafiri, he's playing Vi, he's playing his damn kindred. Like I just have so much faith in the idea of him carrying. Like same as you. Like I thought that FPX with the Yon draft they would manage to piece it together, and but that was against. Earlier today, I think I'm mixing up the matchups. Whatever. Shun is really good. That was my point. Yes. Shun is really good. That was my point.
No, I'm with you. By the way, that's another reason why that narrative has had to continue, much like the Zeus Thorin one in LCK with T1. The reason the narrative for the whole time with BLG when they've been struggling is the jungler isn't just that, like, fucking Weir wasn't playing good. It's that Shun looked good on fucking JDG, and at the beginning of the split, they were actually a good team. Look, they had the bit in the middle where they fired the coach, and it went downhill, as I said, even a week ago or so. They look kind of shit. They look way better now, and the difference is he actually has had some big games. Put it this way, if I was fucking Knight and Bin, I'd be looking and going, mate, look at what he's doing for Harley and fucking Scout. Why did we kick this guy? Like, he should be in our team. I'm with you. I actually think that will go down as one of the, even though at the time I didn't hate it, Yamato, in the sense of like, look, I did think that Jun had some dodgy moments in the fucking summer split last year, and he wasn't even all that great all the time at Worlds. He just had he essentially could just play Scarlet was the key thing. But I do think that will go down in history. It's because of how BLG looks now. As potentially like we wish we could take that move back and just stick with that lineup. But oh well, because I'm with you. The problem with the JDG game has never been the idea they don't have enough good players. They've got really good players, especially the name value's mega. The problem with their team's always how are they going to make it fit? How would they streamline it? Would people know who they like? For example, would Piers actually walk in thinking he's coming to be the super carry, or would he walk in knowing it's a solo lane thing? Like, what's his vision of the game? So bear in mind they're a team that fired their coach. Like, fair play. This is a fucking massive win. Yeah. And as I say, for all we were saying, because I agreed with you about Scout, he's looked way better in these games, though, man. Like, this is like some fucking rolling it back years. Yeah.
Oh, he was just like before. He was just getting like dry solo killed. It just looked like, I don't know. It looked like a just complete mental collapse. There was no other way to describe what that IGJDG series. It wasn't like, oh, gameplay wise, they're having some misses. It just looked like complete flatline in terms of like how much ambition they had. It was so obvious that was some kind of like a mental break. And I just figured, oh, this is the doom for JDG. Like, should we cook up a parlay JDG losing every series for the rest of the split? You know, let's see how that looks like. But they just, ever since they lost to IG in the most depressing manner, they haven't lost a series since. Which is just crazy. Ale as well in that matchup against Bin, like, he just picks Jax into him, completely pops off. It's like my main issue with
that was
Billy.
swaggy as fuck, man. That was swaggy as fuck. You got to give him that.
That shit was
doing that. Imagine picking Jax against Bin and just being like, watch this, motherfucker. That's actually dope. I love that.
It was gorgeous. Fantastic game from him. Just Billy. It's almost as if they got away just because of how good they were for the longest time to just take any fight and win. But now they're taking any fight, they can't win, and they just look horrible. Because in that game 2 in particular, they had this Yorick, Ashe, Renata, Skarner, Victor draft. On paper, that is a fantastic draft because the enemy will have a very, very hard time breaking you. JDG have like this Elise, Kalista, Annie, Pantheon, these champions that need to really, really get ahead early game. And Billy in this one managed to get a double kill top early in the game, and all they needed to do was kind of pace themselves out. But they just can't. There seems to be like the fight IQ of Billy is so damn low, but they just got away with it for such a long time because they just had so much knockout power. But if Knight and Bin are not going to perform like the best individual players in the league, this just doesn't work. And now, as their solo lanes are underperforming, it's so clear that their macro is just lacking. But at least from Knight and Bin, we've had moments where they looked good in this split.
Oh, for sure. They showed the hands, yeah.
On to me was like one of the best supers in the world last year. I don't know what has happened to him. He's just so far from the same player that he was, and it just makes me think, you know, like there's this thing in the fandom about Shun. It's like people always talk about his smile, his damn smile. And the theory is Shun was the soul of this team. He was making everybody happy and smile.
Fucking hell, okay.
I know you would love this. And now they got rid of the soul, and now all they see is everything is just black and white. There's no more color in Billy's life.
It's so whack. It's so whack. Okay.
I knew you would hate it.
Because it's the problem. I do think it is certainly the case that, for example, like Yankos is something like this. There are people who do like change the vibe of a team and the chemistry and how you talk and how you view, but they're taking it too far. Like you said, they're making it like they're just a fucking soulless, so they can't even motivate themselves to play because the light of their life has gone out. Like they're just making it too much, man. It's becoming like some poetry a loser would write for a girl who fucking dumped him, you know, like for Chad in this analogy.
Yeah. As a follow-up, It's like, are we ready to believe JDG now commit the playoffs?
No,
Does this
come
streak of
on.
wins
No.
change
Here's the thing.
anything?
What I'll say is this. I do think that as they've shown, they have real upset potential. Like, they can hit pretty fucking hard when they do hit. They have good players. But no, I think as we described, fundamentally, if you go back in past episodes, I think we did nail it on this team. This team just looks like it should be more like fourth. That's reasonable. That's not even being unfair. I'm being fairly charitable even that. I think fourth's reasonable for them. Now, look, to be fair, we don't know yet because, for example, if BLG shit, maybe they come third, maybe they can even be better. But as of right now, like all those past episodes are real. Like top esports and anyone's edges are the best teams. Like to me, there's a difference between those two and everyone else. If anything, as we talked about, it's actually more worrying that the JDGs and the BLGs themselves are going down to the fucking the NIPs of the world and the FPXs and the WWEs. They're closer to them than it feels like they are to TES and fucking anyone's legend.
No, I just pulled up the LPL bracket just to make sure that we have a finals, and we have a finals.
Of course.
But even better, I'm looking at it, and my understanding is that there is no like gauntlet format. It's basically just a big ass bracket, like a big ass bracket.
And it's all BO5s, by the way, all BO5s.
And there is no skipping. There's no like, oh, you're top two, you skip into like there's like 8 teams straight up get GA, 4 teams start in the bottom. So there's this a 12-team bracket. Just straight League of Legends, 8 teams having double elimination. Like this is a beauty. This was even better than I expected. LPL formats have just been delivering big time. Like they just been delivering. Even like last split when they introduced Fearless. To some people, even to me, it was boring to see these best of 5s between these groups or being repeated. But they thought Fearless makes no sense in best of 3, so we were gonna make the whole format best of 5s just so we get the most out of Fearless. And I thought that was a good approach. I in terms of competitive integrity and getting the matches that we want, LPL has really, really nailed it. And that's in the context of they have to deal with the fact that they have 16 teams. That makes it a lot more challenging, making it super, super interesting. So LPL formats completely go to the split.
And here's a banger for you. Well, one of these two teams, either BLG or who am I thinking of here? BLG or who's the other? Oh, IG. Either BLG or IG. One of them's going to have to go through the playing part, mate. So even the playing, by the way, looks like a banger. It could be either BLG or IG. Then it's got Weibo already. It's got FPX. It's got WE. It's got NIP. Even TT could give you the game. So, mate, the actual LPL is just so competitive now. It's nuts, mate. It's actually nuts how good it is.
It's exciting. You know, I think LCK's level definitely has fallen a little bit. Like I think in winter it was like, ooh, look at this. T1's doing good. D+ look fantastic. It's like now we had like a period where like non-stream looked good, but now like those kind of dreams have faded a lot. Like now I think it's fair to say, like with ease, that LPL's level looks just. Of course, it's always been just more competitive by the nature of just having this many teams and top 10 being so close as it is. But I think in the nuance of the level too, there's a lot of moments where I see like anyone's legends, top esports, do things that I think makes me, it makes me very excited for an MSI. Like I think LPL has gotten very, very underrated. And I think there's a world where LPL can still, of course, win MSI. I don't think it's that clear cut anymore that, LCK is going to win no matter what.
I've got a topic I want to bring up with you, which goes like this. I would save this for my hot take show, but I actually think if someone watches LPL religiously, it's not that a hot take, mate. It just sounds like it initially before you let your brain think about how they played, what their careers were, and don't just think about the names, right? If you ask someone, Yamato, I mean, I saw this came up recently, actually. If you say to a fan, just a normal fan, after Faker, because everyone else, I mean, I actually acknowledge Faker's the GOAT, because if GOAT has to include championships, no one has the same resume. I just think Rookie was better as a player. But if you say, if Faker's the GOAT, then if that's a consensus, the more interesting question becomes, who's second, right? Who would be second after Faker? If you ask a lot of fans, to this day, a lot of fans will say UmTi, right? I'm going to make a statement that I think completely disqualifies that. Bro, if you watch how players play only in the LPL, I don't even think UmTi is the best ADC from the LPL. I think Jakilov's actually had a better LPL career. First of all, not only has he won way more, by the way, if you want resume, he's got a way better resume. I actually think if you ever watch, people don't know this, Yamato, not only did UmTi get like the world's buff, he would actually play, I actually thought, a very exploitative style in the LPL. He would get caught a lot. He would try a lot of ego ones. He would definitely use some ego drafts and demand lock-ins. Jakilov, for me, has actually had because you have to remember, he's had a long career now, mate. He's had a solid, we're talking like a 7 or 8 year career. He has been, forget internationally, where I acknowledge that he definitely has choked a bunch of times. Domestically, this guy has been unbelievable. I actually think he's the best ADC LPL's ever produced, mate. You even still see it in regular games. He's just a smurf. When he's on his game, he is one of the most scary players. And funnily enough, I always used to even say, he even is basically the fucking successor to UmTi. Look how he plays. He plays super balls to the wall, and you can tell he always thinks he's the main character. But these guys can pull it off. He's got fucking swag as Jakilov, mate. I love this guy.
Oh, Jakilov, in terms of just the weirdest part for me is with Jackie is it's almost as the worse of a name his support is, the better he plays.
True. it's true for some weird reason.
I will never forget his 2023 summer because to me he was one of the best players in the world. I was so disappointed to not see him get to the World Championship. Even in the context
remember, it's the one where you can go look at the sort. I think Ellis even had a clip. There's a clip where he does like a base defense that is like one of the most. It's one of the best mechanical clips you'll ever see in your life, Yamato. It's almost like he is perfectly spacing every fucking guy. Every auto goes. Oh, it's unbelievable. Like you watch it, and if you appreciate mechanics, you're like, holy! It's just like the best player I've ever seen. It's just impossible.
No, I like to entertain, because it was always when the conversation of like AD carry goats, it's like Deft, Ruler, Uzi, and then
maybe
like
Viper.
But it's like Jakilov is a fair one, because the weird thing about Uzi for me, it's like I always view Uzi like Pele, you know? It's like he was just very early. He was doing shit that nobody else was doing, and he ushered in to just the LPL ADC is because of Uzi. But in terms of the conversion, like at some point, it kind of fell off. You know, it fell off. Like the ending is not the strongest. There were like moments, championships, where you kind of wish that Uzi would push it over the line, but it's like even 2017. That was a year where, in my mind, probably is like the most painful one for RNG, because that was like the ADC meta, and Faker just ruined everything with his Galio. 2018
that's the one I always said. I agree with you, Matt. I always said I actually think if RNG had won that game 5 in that season set, I think they win Worlds that year, mate. I think they do.
Yeah.
I think it would have been amazing.
I think that's super fair, yeah. And 2018 too, the fact that in the end Jakilov wins the championship after a year of dominance from RNG. There's so many narratives at play, but I can definitely see the world of Jakilov. I don't know if I can go so far to put him second, because I just have something about.
No, you missed the point on that one. I mean, in the LPL only, he's the best ADC. I don't mean he's the second best player of all time, but I think he was better in the LPL than UmTi was. That's my take. Which, again, to me, I don't think for LPL fans that was a hot take. I think to a casual, that's a crazy hot take, because you're just thinking of all the chokes internationally. By the way, I'll just throw this out there as food for thought. This is where fans really bore me, Yamato. So the same fans that if we talked about, I did this a few years ago, if we're talking about the all-time great EU players, right? And we're talking about Expeke and Soaz and Caps, if I mention Froggen, they all laugh at me, mate, because they don't know what they're talking about, right? But Froggen was the best player in the world back in the day. But here's what's crazy. So they'll go to me, who gives a shit about that? But then they all care about UmTi making Worlds at the same time, or Faker's prime being all this. That's 10 years ago. Like, why are they allowed to have their prime from 10 years ago count? But then when I like a player, that doesn't count somehow. Like, it's just boring, mate. If there's one thing that's really boring, it's where people just play the rules and just go, I win because I changed the rules to make me win now. But then when the same rule happens and you win, I make it so you lose. Like, well, then I'm not playing the game. Fuck you. There you go. See ya. Because UmTi is donkeys years ago. By the way, the last time UmTi was a great player, the fucking year, the third number was a 1. Enough said. So if you think old shit doesn't count, miss me with UmTi. Miss me with him. Now, I do think it counts, by the way. I do think he was one of the best players ever. It's just the problem people don't get is he was doing some Canyon shit, except instead of the regular split, he just phoned in the LPL splits, mate. And also, I'll just say this. If you ever saw him on RNG, he unfortunately was a bit of a playoff choker. Like, if you put him into a really big game 4, game 5, he actually did lose a bunch of them, as in he was sometimes the reason they didn't win. Like, I think, by the way, it's understandable. Like a lot of players, I think in some ways, he actually, at one point in time in China, had the upset thing. If you don't know, by the way, guys, he only ever won 2 splits. It was just in 2018. So before 2018, he had the upset thing of like, well, everyone says you're the best, but where's your championship? That was a real thing people used to put on this guy's back. There's actually a lot of narratives, by the way, because obviously it's my specialty that people forget in sports, Yamato. Like one of the reasons, to make a very quick side tangent, because you'll remember this, one of the reasons I actually hate that shit narrative that cause Messi won the World Cup really late in his career, that proves he's the GOAT, is because, bro, that's how you know these are fake Messi fans. Messi fans used to always say international doesn't count because it's not like club player, because famously, actually, even Argentinians used to say Messi was like underwhelming internationally, and they all used to hate on him in Argentina and be like, that's why Maradona's the great. That's true. That's a real narrative. Until 2022, the narrative in Argentina was like, actually, Messi's kind of failed the national team. He didn't do what Maradona does, which is like, if you remember, Maradona like hard carried the World Cup, bro. Like he was unbelievable. So UmTi used to be treated like that. It's just to Western fans, they only remember those 2 Worlds runs or like season 8, and in their brain he's just always that player, whereas I think he's been an up and down player for me.
No, I think it's very fair. I can buy the Jackie Love angle. I got the Jackie Love. Just I already mentioned the 2023 one, but he's been in the conversation of qualifying to Worlds or being the best AD for such a long time regionally, and especially in a world where the ADCs in LPL, like Viper was in the LPL, it's like fucking Ruler was in the LPL, and all these demon names that came and
Koreans,
went.
Yeah.
It's like the ADC role has always been insanely competitive.
Absolutely.
And to always be minimum top 3 is incredibly impressive. I'm with you. I think Jackie Love better than
But this way, I actually, on the final thing you're saying at the end there, that's another thing I do think is a trend that has always existed. In the same way as Korea has actually, funny enough, always been the solo lane region. It's always been about carry top laners and amazing mid laners. If you actually look for the majority of the history of the LPL, it is about ADCs. Bro, even think about people like BLG. That was because of Elk. They didn't even have Knight back then. There you go. You go and look, like all the dope players were the fucking ADC. They had Imp early on, then they had Deft, they had Nami, they had UmTi. Like you say, they had fucking Viper, Ruler, Jackie Love, UmTi. The fucking, you keep going. Mystic used to be sick when he was there, that Korean player when he used to play back in the, they have unbelievable. That's why, if anything, I actually give extra credit to the godlike mid laners of the LPL. That's why when people like the Zhaohus and the Knights come along and they're there winning championships, like, you are just cracked, mate, because that league isn't even really about playing fucking mid lane. Like they will just take a mid laner and go just get on Ariana, mate, and let the ADC carry this fight. Like, that's how they run shit back there. So, yeah, props to that. By the way, if you are a scout, a knight, and a Zhao, if you ever win, then I'll give you mad props, because I think that region is more about just, it's all the team fighting. China's, one thing I appreciate is they've always known their strength, mate. Koreans love macro and slow objective setup. The Chinese love early skirmishes and big 5v5 team fights. And I fucking love watching them, because to this day, that is still probably, I've always said this, why JDG was my favorite team. That is the most entertaining style of play to watch, is an amazing 5v5 team fight team. And much like that team, also probably the best for drama, is if they're behind in the team fight, they're coming in with like an item down, or you have to catch someone. That's like the most thrilling League of Legends. It's not really like, people think it's when you do like the base race, or the guy's trying to fucking get a Baron smite. Like, that's exciting in the moment, but it's like when you see a massive fight play out, that's like League of Legends to me. That's the best moment. And by the way, if you want to put an ADC in one of those fights, put Jackie Love in there. In the LPL, at least, he will smurf it. I am sad for you if you only watch international, because it feels like some peanut shit where you're like, where's this guy? You keep telling me he's the best. But I'm telling you, if you watch the LPL, he is so fucking good. It is nuts. Like, the ceiling on his skill is impossible, Yamato. He's so skilled, it's mental.
I wanted to add on the topic of Zhaohu, because it's also so obvious that Zhaohu like inspired how pretty much everyone played mid lane regionally. Like, outside of course Rookie, like Rookie being of course the like mechanical lane demon earlier, playing the assassins, but in terms of Zhaohu being the inspiration is so clear, because the times where LPL has won MSI, it's always during mid-lane metas where it's like Lissandra, Annie, if you want to get real funky, Nautilus mid. It's
Yeah,
like it's
true.
always been in the context of like very, very like mid lane has just been a very different thing in the LPL for the longest time because Yahoo played with Uzi and Uzi was, the main character of the region and he adjusted that by being, insanely active on the map. Zhao, I know everyone associates Faker with Rise, but for the longest time, Zhao who Rise
Absolutely.
was
Yeah.
exactly that. It was just someone that dominated the map and was just ready to fight whenever his AD wanted to. And I think you can clearly see that when like as I mentioned before, when LPL won MSI was mostly because the meta was exactly that. It's like mid laners that want to be active, make their Viego jungle, Lee Sin jungle really be strong in the mid jungle 2v2, and a player like Chovy in that MSI where JGG won, you could clearly see that he was struggling playing like Annie Lissandra. This is something that he need to go back and relearn completely in 2024. Like he changed his play style even that summer where he was like roaming the map with Talia in that finals against T1. It's fun to talk about because I think the stories and the impact of some of these players within LPL is extremely underrated, especially here in the West. And I think Zhao as a player is like extremely impactful because in the end he's also managed to do something that nobody else probably will ever accomplish, just winning MSI on 2 roles.
Oh
And
no,
then
mate. I think you could actually make an argument, only in isolation, that is the single most impressive accomplishment in League of Legends history. Because here's the other thing as well, Yamato. There's been plenty of really good players who did role swaps, but notice it's nearly always that they're worse in one of the roles. It's like they used to be a great mid laner, and now they role swap to support, and they're like decent. Or the other way around, they were like a mid ADC, and then they swapped, and they were amazing support. This guy was actually like MVP of the league in mid lane. Then he swapped to top lane and was the best player in the world from top lane, and he even played his same champion Lucian in both roles, which is an ADC champion, and was unbelievably cracked in both and shot called from both. I actually think for real, I agree with you. That MSI win is like one of those like that should have a documentary. That's unbelievable, that storyline. And then you beat him Faker. Fuck. Well, it was Dan won that one, I guess, when he did the top lane one, to be fair. It was mid lane when he beat Faker, as far as I remember. Because that was when they had been, if you remember. No, I think it's nuts. That is mad underrated, isn't it? Like, there's plenty of people who'll do role swaps. I doubt they'll ever be a contender for best in the world at their role. Like, that's fucking impossibly cracked. And shot call at the same time, too. This guy had hands and he would fucking shot call. Like, give me a break. It's nuts.
Well, I'm getting slowly more and more excited for the MSI that's coming. LPL LCK will be a hell of a fight, and a big thing that
the problem is, think about first stand. It didn't really deliver, mate, because it was 5 teams and the format was like, wow. Think about the teams we could have, right? Let's just run through them. So from Europe, we'll just take the obvious candidates right now. We won't be like silly or whatever. So from Europe, you can have Fnatic and Karmine Corp. By the way, mate, those are our most skilled players in Europe. We want those players playing there. Those teams, by the way, could do a lot of things in the game. They're very interesting. You go to NA, let's say for now it is FlyQuest. At least it's got the veterans, it's got the people who mix. By the way, they're going to know they're coming in as an underdog and they've got some weird picks. You go to LCK, it's easy. GenG and Hannibal Life. Even if Hannibal Life's weaker, they're the team that won the last tournament. We want to see them there anyway. GenG looks fucking sick. Go to LPL. Let's just take it. Let's just say it's top esports in anyone's legend. Mate, this tournament sounds amazing. Think about, like, I'm going to watch almost every one of those BO5s, mate. There's not a bad one in there. And then, by the way, like we do every time, just like at first stand, whoever it is, whether it's Flying Oyster or whatever, there'll be some team from Taiwan that'll probably also have like a little bit of upset potential. This tournament's going to be it's going to be, because of the format, the tournament of the year. It is every year for me, but it's going to be amazing, mate.
No, it's super exciting. I think LPL is coming in underrated. I have to entertain conversations where people tell me LEC is better than LPL, which drive me insane. I'm excited to see how the LPL playoff run shapes up, because that too, I think, the format in itself won't prepare the LCK teams well for this competition, which I think is going to be it's a boon. It's a problem. Like the LPL teams that are coming to this tournament,
we didn't even talk about that. Yamato, you're right. I hadn't even thought about that. This is actually one of the only times in history the format might actually make Korea weaker. Because think about it, Yamato. You just pointed it out. The LPL is just like a fucking 8-team double in bracket with all BO5. If you're GenG, you're in Fearless Draft, but you might have only played one BO5 this split. That's not enough fucking sample size. Like, even they won't know whether they're at Yamato. You need the official games to sort of test you, right? I know what you mean. That's scary.
It's nutty. It's really crazy, and I'm super happy that this is the format because, like, I thought we're going to have the usual LPL format. I should read up on the formats. That's what I'm realizing this year. That the formats were not what I expected them to be. Because I was worried. Anyone's Legends, like they're gonna go directly into top 4. They're not gonna have that experience. They're gonna watch teams play, and whoever's gonna come for them is gonna be a demon. The fact that they get to play those BO5s from the get-go. And they get challenged and they get to maybe play an easy opponent. That's really nutritious for them. That's super, super good. So whoever is going to come out of LPL will have won, 4 BO5s to get to either 4 or 3 to just make the final. That's amazing. That's fantastic.
To win the LPL, you have to win at least 4.
That's like nuts. You know, that's crazy. That's like really, really good. And on top of that, we know already that the schedule will be like gruesome. Like we know they're gonna play a best of 5 here, and then in 3 days another one. That's also what MSI is. MSI is exactly that.
There's more competition. It's harder too. Like there's a world where to win the LPL, you might actually have to beat like Weibo into fucking anyone's legend, into top esports, into like fucking hell. Like in the LCK, you like first of all, if you're GenG, you just sit in the final. But if you're one of the underdog teams, you have to beat like fucking Fear X into Nongshim into like these are decent teams, but that's not on the same level. Like the difference is the Nongshims and the Fear X's are more like the NIPs and the fucking FPXs of the LPL. Like the LPL just has, again, we point out many times, but it just has a lot of good teams. It's a really fucking sick league.
For sure. No, it's exciting. EMA Masters.
And by the way, I'm just going to say this. Never give up on IG. With where the league is right now, the only 2 teams that I would say on paper should definitely beat them are TES and Anyone's Legend. Anyone else, they could upset me. Like if you put them tomorrow against BLG, this isn't that BLG of past years, mate. They could win that series. They can beat JDG. I think they can beat anyone except those 2. I want to see. That's why I'm interested to see. Look, it means they'll probably miss out on MSI, but let's see. Let's throw it around in the playoffs because I've definitely seen some globe games.
You know what? The last 2 series, I actually thought macro-wise IG can actually control the pacing of the game. And I haven't seen that all year long. They actually like set the pace. They didn't race against it. They didn't have any conflict. There was no like Mako deaths. There were no JJ craziness. There was actually like cohesive setups on Dragons, cohesive setups on Nationals. Like that NIP series, I thought it was going to be like the dirtiest series of all time because it's IG NIP. The last time they faced off, IG somehow lost when NIP was supposed to be at their worst. But IG is actually, bro, they're looking legit. They're looking legit, man. I'm happy that you brought them up.
I need to ask you a question. Did you really just say out loud, EMEA Winter?
I said EMA Masters.
Masters, okay. Why do we give a fuck about EMEA Masters?
I screwed up because I wanted to go to LEC, and I had EMEA Masters in my mind because we I was going to say, I'm trying to qualify.
Listen, maybe when it gets to the playoff bracket, we can talk about that if you want. Yes, start the fucking groups in. I'm definitely not talking about all the shit to teams. I don't give a fuck about that, man. Again, by the way, I don't even give them credit. The only reason I ever mention Lost Retorners is they're really famous and everyone's really interested in them. Like, there's a lot of drama around them. Like, we're not talking about it. But I get, if you just mean LEC, we can talk about LEC. We could do that. Let's do it.
Yeah, I want to do a little break now. We have a bracket now. We're in playoffs.
Yeah, finally. Let's do it.
And the
right, first of all, before we get to the playoffs, let's discuss the one thing that I think has to be mentioned, which is if you look at the playoffs, right, look at the lower bracket. The 2 teams waiting in the lower bracket is GX, who had to get their shit together completely, basically from that homestand on, and they sort of like smurfed their way out of the league. And then Heretics was the team all split long that was like sort of like sleeper, better than you think. You'd watch them play and you'd be like, this team's actually pretty solid. Like the players interact well together. But the problem they had, like that KC series, was they would sometimes lack a little bit of firepower, or they couldn't sort of like get it over the line and complete the win. The problem I have is this. I don't mind either of these teams. They're both good. But I actually was more hyped over these 2 teams to watch Vitality play in the playoffs, Yamato. I actually thought Vitality was the team that showed off like some rookies that had some real skill, including even the Nakanako guy who fucked up the Yasuo game against Rogue that now cost them the fucking playoffs. Like that team had like a ceiling that was quite interesting, and they were sort of coming together a little bit. Like, essentially, it's just a bit of a bummer to me that they missed out, because the difference is I don't think Herex is going to make any impact on the playoffs. I think they're just going to play whoever loses this first match and then just be out. Whereas I actually thought, win or lose, Vitality was making the game interesting to me. They had sort of like there's a variance there that I was in for. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. You know, the Team Heretics story, I think it's impressive in itself. They're finding
Absolutely.
like steady progression as a
Yeah.
team that definitely like took some names in that you know, the league kind of discarded. Shio's looking good, Stend is improving,
I
but
don't think anyone even wanted the Camilo guy, man. I don't know who was even trying to
yeah,
get him. That's a crazy pickup. Yeah. That's a
and
crazy pickup.
in the end now it's like I don't think this is a team that should win a BO5 against
No,
any other
no.
team in this bracket.
No,
It's like
why would
even the
they?
way they won against Vitality was more on Vitality. I think Vitality, the weird thing about them now is just I don't know how they move on from here, because I imagine it's like if you brought in Niski, right? I imagine that you think that this spring split, you're gonna tank it. Because I don't think there is a realistic world where you believe that Niski is going to come in and become like a great support instantly, and that's going to revamp you
Even so,
completely.
your version of tanking is still be in playoffs, though. Like, be the last team in playoffs. It's not just bounce at the bottom of the league with Rogue, is it? Come on.
No, definitely. I just mean in the context of like how do
Yeah,
Vitality
of
like move
course.
on from here?
Of
Because
course.
that loss was so gruesome. It's like they were like 6K gold ahead and lost in like a very, very strange
Oh, put it
fashion.
this
This has
way. Is
just
this what
been
you were sort of implying? Because this does make sense. Put it this way. If you bring in Niski, you're not expecting him to instantly be good in one split and then kick him. Like, this is a test for next split too. Like, he gets this split to warm up, and then the next split's probably what decides his fate, right?
because I don't know, like they have options, right? It's like they have Fleshy as their support in the Vitality Academy, who's like shown some fine performances on an EMA Masters level. Niski is right now streaming, playing mid lane in solo queue to climb, so I don't know what kind of implication that has.
Yeah.
And they have, of
Get
course,
ready for
Hilly.
summer.
They have Hilly, you know, like I don't know what the plan is here, you know, because I imagine if you bring in Niski for spring, the whole idea should be that you are making a commitment for the whole year. But if they now go and into summer they make a different decision, then I'm gonna be like, what the hell are they even doing there? They're just like throwing darts on a board and hoping that something works out, because I cannot imagine a world where you throw in Niski in the middle of the year and you expect him to learn the role so fast, because obviously the flaws in the game in terms of how he plays are clear, like lack of experience in the role, like in terms of how he executes team fights, how he plays champions. It's very clear that this is something that is like his lack of experience is just showing. And while they might have been happy with having like a little bit more stable game, I don't think this gambit on like in terms of how it looked in the end product was a success. Like I like people want to compare Hilly, Niski, and have that conversation, but I don't think Hilly was that terrible. I don't know if it was just something like within the team where they wanted to change and give like more space to players because Hilly was enforcing his game too much. But in terms of where they landed, it's like Vitality made playoffs in winter. Obviously, it's like they there was the top 8 thing, and that was a different conversation. But the record looked a little bit better in winter. So I don't know where Vitality goes for me. I don't know what you expect, but Vitality, the whole idea of Vitality just looks really tragic, because I think back to when Mad Lions moved on from Mac and Pad. I was like, damn, Vitality made this pickup, Mac and Pad. That's something to be excited about. But there's been zero, like, what have we gained? What has Vitality gained over this? Because I feel like the management must feel low key kind of robbed, you know, with what they have right now.
I do think one aspect that people maybe overlooked about the Niski move is because Niski has this rep that he's a facilitating player and he plays with the jungler. I think people have taken that and they've conflated it with the idea he's the main shot caller of the team. So I think people also thought him coming into this role is going to add some like aspect. I don't know that that's the case. It looks to me like he just plays support. And I'm with you. The funny thing is, he doesn't play support that differently than Hylissang, mate. So, like, that's the part I don't really get. Like, when we had that discussion about Smash Gumayusi last split, at least, like, Smash plays the champions, Gumayusi doesn't. Like, that makes more sense. I'm with you. Here's the thing. The only angle this has worked on is he's not Hylissang, which to some people is the not negative part. But I'm with you. He also doesn't, like, I also don't think he brings the highs that Hylissang occasionally would have. Admittedly, it was more occasional now. It wasn't that good. So I don't really know that. Like, for me, that move's kind of like I give it like a 5 out of 10. It's not good. It's not that bad. I don't hate it, but put it this way. If I could just bring like a real support player, I'd probably do it. Because I think the rest of the team is good. Like I said, the Nak Nako guy, put it this way. If I really torture myself, I can even find a way in which doing that mad Yasuo pick was like kind of swaggy. Like, he is a Yasuo player, and he was sort of trying to show like, hey, I actually am mega skilled, and since Rogue's supposed to be shit, let me just style on him and show you. And I think he has had some games, by the way, where you've lived and died of him. He's actually carried some games. I think if you look at their team in general, like, I do think it's got some good play. I still think Kazi's good. He's maybe not as good as past years, but he's still good. One of the things I love about Kazi, mate, is this: despite his like troll personality, bro, in the game he never gives up. Like, he actually he's going to actually have one of the better mentals I've seen for like playing in a team that's losing and behind and having a hard time. Like, this guy never gives up. He always follows in on the support. Like, I actually give him a lot of props how he plays. And I do think if you look at their squad, like, I'll tell you what, the other person you could also flame, to be fair though, Yamato, this is why support jungle is considered a duo, is Linkchas guy. Like, I think he also hasn't lived up to the billing of what people wanted him to be. Like, people wanted this guy. He was supposed to basically come in and he was supposed to do like Yike type things and be like a revelation thing, or skew bond and be some monster. He hasn't been that. He hasn't. He's maybe tried to pick those champions, but he hasn't fit that role through. So I think another problem they have is, I think if you look at their team, it's like top lane's good, mid lane's, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. It can be good sometimes. ADC's good. I do think jungle support, though, that's the issue. Put it this way, on that one lens alone, it makes more sense Heretics is in. Because Heretics jungle support is really strong. If anything, it's some of the other players, they don't have that good. Their jungle support's actually underratedly very good, I've got to say.
I said it before the whole tiebreaker situation even went down. Like, I think if you could make a team with Naknako, Shio, Shayak, and you put Kazi and Sten together, that's a really fucking
pretty good
team.
squad. Yes,
that's a good team that can make it maybe break into top 4 even. Like those are the players that have performed.
Ruston would be better than GX, but I'm with you. That would be like the 5th best team, or maybe like play with Koi to be 4th or something, or G2. Yeah, that could compete. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm with you as well. I think Linsas also deserves like criticism. It's like, now at this point he's been playing in the league for a long enough time, and then the main question is, it's like, yo, what are we supposed to be excited about here?
Yes.
And in the end, it's like, Vitality as an org, I hate to say it, bro, ever since they moved on from that coach that brought them to the World Championship, back in 2018, and then 2019 the playoffs. And then, they didn't make playoffs for the longest time. And then they ran into, 2 years later, they ran into that same coach they got rid of in 2019 and lost to him. It's just been a cursed run for Vitality ever since. It's just, someone needs to study that history.
So in some ways, they never fully recovered from kicking Yamato Cannon. That's the real problem.
Never.
That was where it all went downhill. Before that, they were like a team that was on the rise. They had money to spend. They were attracting big name talents. But ever since they fucked with the Yamato Cannon, that Tomato Canyon, it's over for them. It's over for them.
Honestly, think about this. You mentioned the summer split perks.
I love the way also, the other detail you have is you actually do have that mad narrative where, like, you're the one person ever beating Caps in, like, playoff series. It's true. You've done it a couple of times. I'll give you that. It's not even anyone else. It's just Yamato. Only Yamato counters Caps.
Yeah. That's the truth, man. No, but it's like, think about it. You mentioned the summer split Vitality. There was that one last BO1 they had to win, and they ran into Fnatic. And then Fnatic made playoffs and made the miracle run.
Indeed. That was also for yeah, exactly. It turns out the secret, not protagonist, antagonist, the secret anti-hero of the LEC was Yamato all along. Yamato all along. All he was doing is ruining the dreams of, fucking Perks and all these like legendary players. Yeah, Caps.
I got him into the ruddy sack just to rub it in,
Yeah, just kicking all our goats and just kicking them in the balls. Why are you doing that? Celebrate the goats. Love the goats. Exactly.
Yeah, that's raw. That's what it is. It's like, I learned it from the Pistons. It's Caps rules, Perks rules. It is just, if you can't play with the goat, kick him in the balls. That's. The
only thing is, though, over the years, the so-called Perks rules actually changed, though, because eventually the Perks rules became, I'm allowed to throw any scrim I want. Fuck you. Who you, my GM? It turned out those rules didn't apply. Turns out they did not apply. He was revoked. His role status was revoked. Anyway, let's actually talk about the playoffs then. Because, obviously, by the way, one thing I got wrong on the last episode is Carmine Corp, because they were first, got to pick which team they played.
Oh.
Now, here's what's funny, Yamato, is everyone's going to take the fact that, I believe, I am correct about that, right? Is that not true? I believe it was Carmine Corp got to pick which of the teams were, like, out of 3rd and 4th they played in the match. Is that correct?
I am not certain. Let me pull it up.
Let me try Googling.
Because it has to be, right? Because Movistar
believe it
Koi
was.
managed to get third. So I imagine that they picked. It must have been, right? Because usually if it's seeded, then one plays versus four.
Yes, which is what I thought. I was thinking they were going to have to play G2 just because of the team, but essentially they're playing Koi. So I'm pretty sure I saw someone say that. So it sounds like it is correct, right? What's funny about that, Yamato, is when people look at it, I think they're going to look and think, oh, does that mean G2's still strong and you're worried about blah, 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 all the rest of it? I actually think this is more like the Koi angle to me. I actually think they wanted Koi, bro, because here's the difference. First of all, you do think about G2, and they do have very experienced players. Like, you don't want to fuck around and play them until you have to, because you never know what experienced players will do. They can turn it on in the playoffs in a way that, like, a rookie can't. But also, I think with Koi, you have to remember, Koi's been really up and down with it. There are days they just turn up and they're just not that good themselves. Like, I don't hate this pick at all. I actually think it's, look, I'm very sure Karmik Hope is going to win this game, mate. It's a BO5.
This would be like the equivalent of picking like JDG over Billy, like coming into a BO5, because there's something scary about that team. That like they might just turn up. They're like a couple of days away from just finding their form again. I think in the context of this in particular, I do think KC is just the best matchup against Koi. Like every time they played against each other, there was this issue where Koi kind of faced a wall macro-wise, and when they had to face the music in terms of team fighting, KC could always beat them. I never felt like in any KC Koi games, regardless of the form of Koi or KC, it always seemed like KC would be able to just pull it off in the end. Like no game seemed lost for KC, and I think a big part of that is Koi in terms of closing out games when it comes to Nash scenarios, when it comes to Drake scenarios. I do think this is still one of their bigger weaknesses. I think that Koi has a very, very strong early game, and they have practiced leveraging that into a stronger mid to late. But I do think that Casey's biggest strength is those late game team fights, and I feel like Casey is always going to find a way to get into those. The main concern for Koi always, for me, as they're improving their macro is, I think in terms of the support role and also the mid lane role, I do think, the support role too, but I think that support and jungle, very limited in what they play in terms of champion pool. Like I want to see Zinzao, Braum, Rakan, but then it's like when those champions are out, I feel like they kind of run out of steam. And when those pools run out of steam, I don't think that Georgiapune and Supa are strong enough players to actually have a massive presence in the game. Because I do think that anything that happens through Koi is usually through the jungle and support dominating the map, and then Midwin on occasion picking very, very unique champions. But I think when support and jungle loses that pool out, I don't expect Georgiapune and Supa to actually step up to the plate in the same way that Kalis would or Vladi would. And this is true for like a Fnatic as well, like Upset and Humanoids. Like this is just the issue of individually, they are not strong enough, I think, in the mid lane and the ADC role. And credit to Georgiapune, he's playing a lot better in this split than the previous one. And I do think that he plays certain champions well as a facilitator. And I think he's like just a core part of
any moment now. I know this comma bot is coming. So when's the comma bot?
But you don't press tab and you don't get scared about Georgiapune. You just don't.
Well, he's playing Vladimir. That is a guy who's going to fucking take it to you.
Yeah. Is that Vladi and Kalist being so much better in the mid ADC position is going to be too big of a problem. And unless Koi completely demolish them in the early stage and have a big enough gold lead for these things to not matter, I don't know if that's going to be the case, because KC, it's very obvious that they're practicing the early game. I think you can see it in terms of how they are like setting up bot lane ganks, level 3. They're breaking the game very early on, similar to how they did at first stand against top esports. And I think that KC now are like finding their form. Like that break for them was very, very nutritious.
I've got two angles here. One is also my other angle. I made this joke on the Best Damn League show. The most recent episode was with Rako, who's a Superliga coach. And basically, I made the joke as well that the other angle for why I think KC picked MCoy goes like this. And there is a logic to this that I think you will be able to appreciate. Right now, this G2 team isn't the old G2. They don't even have the same magic and flair to them. But I'll tell you what, if I said to you, Yamato, I can choose to make what looks like a scary Fnatic team play G2 in the first round of the playoffs. Mate, of course I'm doing that. they might just lose to the fucking G2 badges, Marjoke. Like, that team, just some of those players in their brain, they're just seeing the G2 badge, mate. They're thinking, look, it's G2. They're not thinking about the team that actually played the split that they were better than. So, one, it just increases the chances someone beats Fnatic for you, by the way, and then you just play MCOY and G2, you're in the final. So there's that. Then on the actual MCOY side, I'm with you. The problem you have if you're MCOY is this. I think any other team in the league you have a chance to beat, I don't think you can actually beat Karmine Corp. Like, if you imagine this scenario, guys, imagine the game timer is at 25 minutes and both teams are roughly even gold, kills, items. KC wins that team fight. Come on, you've seen it play out like that. Like, the only scenario I could see MCOY winning this series or making it close is I've got to have like some early game shit from fucking MCOY where they just I need like Merwin to do a crazy pick and like fucking get some kills on Kana. I need El Yoya to give me a masterclass of pathing and finding out where fucking Yike's gonna be and outplay him and make better if you do that, maybe it's possible. But if you, like I say, if you just go even late game, KC's gonna win this series. They're just gonna walk it. Because I'm with you as well. The two positions that are going to carry the team fight, mid and ADC, they just have much better players. That's not even a diss to MCOY. Yeah, Jojo Pyun didn't make it to where he expected to be. Super just never was that player. I've actually said, what's funny is, if you take Super's silly interview comments out of the equation, I actually sort of fuck with his game. I told you, he does sort of remind me of like an EU sneaky. Like, he's just a guy who just does his job. Like, he plays within himself. He's confident. He actually can be good. His problem is just, the difference is, he has like a decently good ADC game. Callista's a prodigy. He's not just a good player, he's a prodigy. That guy mechanically is on another level. Like, you can even see the plays he's going for in the game are just levels above anything Super would even dream of attempting. Like, he wouldn't even have the notion to do the move that Callista will pull off. Never. And also, he wouldn't be able to pull it off. He doesn't have the raw hands to. So, to me, it's going to be real fucking hard work to win that series if you're MCOY. I'm sorry, you're probably going low bracket. That's, by the way, which is why you know KC probably did the right move. It's probably was the right move to pick, because at the end of the day, like I say, the last thing you want to be is, if you pick G2, by the way, it would be justified. Right now, you should beat them. But that reminds me, if you go back again, we were talking about KT of 2023. Remember when T1 looked weak, so they were like, Lord, we should just pick T1. It turned out they now regret that, because that was when, yeah, you know what, those legendary players woke up and fucking beat you. And that'll be, you'll feel so dumb if you lose a series to G2, you picked them. So in this scenario, even though it's almost like superstition, you just do it anyway. But that does set up a very exciting other matchup for Yamato. The G2 Fnatic one. Because here's what's cool. I know technically you could have said this last split too, but this is another rare example where actually Fnatic's the favourite team. They actually, if they're ever going to win a split, it should be this one. Everything's looked awesome. Even though they're second, that's because they lost that fucking series to like MCOY or whatever it was. Like, they could absolutely win this split. It's perfect. It starts with G2 though, because if you get the G2 ghosts out of the way and it shows like, hey, it isn't even the old G2. That G2's gone. You win this series, game on. Now the whole thing's wide open. Maybe you can win the league. I think that series is going to be a lot of fun, especially as I'll throw in an angle for you. Skewmond, the only time I've seen him look bad is in pressure games. But I'll tell you what, if there's anyone's going to give you a chance, it's fucking Razork, mate. So if you're Skewmond, let me see it, mate. If you really are as good as it seems that you are, this is a great chance to prove it.
The absurdity of these two teams right now is that Fnatic is playing the way Caps wishes G2 would play.
Sure.
Right now, Humanoid is getting so much attention with the jungle support. Like, speaking to some of the other mid laners, like I remember when we talked to Jackie's on the Sackdown, he's like, yeah, Humanoid, the three musketeers. He always gets backup, you know. I don't think he's good. He always gets backup. But that's just the evolution of the role that Jackie's will learn over time, that you need to direct the orchestra. You can't be playing flute in the corner and hoping that's going to, you know, bring you an audience and win you games. G2, the fucked up part about it is that they built this roster around Caps and BB, but these are the players that have been forced into the smallest role possible on this team. Labrov and Hansama, to me, is a match made in heaven to some degree, but also a match made in hell, because they carry the exact same strengths, but also the exact same weaknesses. These are players that need to play the game through themselves, and when they are not winning lanes, they don't know how to create any initiative through anybody else. And I think the same is true for Skewmond. Skewmond is a player that I think that he deserves praise for like his good games, but his bad games, he's insanely silent. I think the way Skymon approaches the game is almost in a way that he plays, I wouldn't say necessary to look good, but he only knows how to play through the lens of himself. I think that when he gets ahead and there's a clear vision on how to win the game through his own champ, he's a demon. Even that first game against
really
PC,
good,
that
man.
Zinzao was insane. Last split when he played Pantheon against Fnatic, he got ahead and he just dominated the whole game. But if something goes wrong, when he needs to be a bit more dynamic, he needs to do something else, it just isn't there.
He gives me, and I keep telling people, he gives me inspired vibes, mate. Like, I could see this guy being a really great jungler who just controls the game, but I'm with you. He is a rookie still. You can see it. You can see it.
Yes. It's like it's so clear that he's super high rank in solo queue because he approaches the competitive matches the same way.
Yes.
This is usually anyone that is super high rank, if they can't find a way to play the game through themselves, they kind of want to surrender. and in my mind, when you have this type of a bot lane and this as a jungler, yeah, your solo lanes are going to be side characters. They're not the main actors. You're basically, having a scene here, in a coffee shop, and the two characters in Labrov and fucking Hansama are being filmed, and in the background there's Brad Pitt just like sipping a coffee, not having a single line in the damn movie. It doesn't make any sense. You have Caps on the damn team. Put him in front of the camera. And this to me, it's like I remember there was this mic check moment where they picked like Gragas, Zyra against like Fnatic's Aurelion Sol, and you could hear like the passion and almost the anger in the voice of Dylan. He's like, this guy is playing Aurelion Sol, we have to burn our flashes, we have to gank it with jungle, with support. He just said it in a way as if, like, I recognize the tone of voice, because that was like something that they tried to hammer in, but it just doesn't come through. Because usually it's like when you're on the stage and you are parting words to the players, it's like the words that you hope is going to help them in their moments of weakness. Basically something to fall back on, because you can't lay out the whole game. You don't know what is going to go down in the game. You need to kind of give them, a crutch in the game to fall back on. And the way he said it, I could see myself in that, where I've been in positions where I've struggled with something with my players, something that we tried to reinforce and just tried to give them that nudge in the right direction. But in that game, it just didn't happen. There was no ganks onto mid. There was no pressure into mid. There was no, help onto Caps. They tried one time, but it went to shit. But it just showed that this is something that they are internally struggling with. Because BB as a player, for the longest time, now people give him this criticism, right, that he doesn't play the Gwen, the Rumble now for 2 years, the Jace, which is super fair criticism. But BB as a player has always had this profile. If you look at 2024 G2 when they were winning, he was only playing the tanks and he was playing always counter picks. A big issue of his last bit was that he didn't play Twisted Fate, one of the biggest, not last bit, last year. Twisted Fate was one of the best champions in the game, but he had the Yasuo. People liked his Yasuo when it looked good into the Twisted Fate against Zeus even, but when it looked bad, he always got criticism. The same thing was, he always played tanks. His unique champions that he played last year was like Zac. He had the Dr. Mundo even that he played. Kesanta was his most played last year. He was very good at soaking up pressure, and he had designed his gameplay pattern to, of course, function with someone like Hansama that wants to be played through him, and also a Caps that also wants all that attention to be, of course, to get ahead in the game and to dominate the game. So there's like the criticism towards BB, while I understand it, I don't think there's a world where he has the room to execute on playing Rumble or playing Gwen. I don't think he has the room to do so. These are champions that need to be kind of handheld through certain moments in the game, and G2 as a team for the last 2-3 years, when BB has been on this team, post Yanko's era, he's had to fulfill a very specific role to pair together with Hansama. And now with G2 as a whole, it's like there's a clear recipe. If they are winning bot, they kind of transfer that pressure into BB playing a tank. But if they can't win bot, they kind of fall apart because there's no creativity from Labrov or Skymon. And I think Fnatic, as long as they go into this series, make sure that they have winning bot lanes and they contest through bottom side, I think G2 will fall apart really damn fast. Because Oscarinin as a player, regardless of how, I think Oscarinin as a player is extremely underrated. Because I think he fulfills a role on Fnatic that is extremely important. He peaks very late into the draft, and he's capable of playing the tank side, and he's willing to play the carry side too. We see him play Ambessa, we see him play Gwen, we see him play the Rumble, And also, he doesn't mind playing the Ornn and the K'Sante. He always picks late in the draft and makes the draft cohesive. While if we compare him to BB, he goes always towards the tank side. Kana always goes towards the carry side. Oscarina is kind of like that sweet spot in between, a player that doesn't take a lot of attention, doesn't want to be in the main shot. Because on this team, you already have Upset and fucking Humanoid and Mickey. You don't need anything exciting and interesting. And I think as long as all of these things, play out and there's no choke factor in place, I think Fnatic should stomp G2. That's where we're at. I think they should.
I'm with you, by the way. I actually think this could even be like a 3-0. I think this could actually be a very dominant one. People are using the historical narrative of like, yeah, but still in Fnatic. People are going to use that joke narrative I made and think it's real. But until that happens, I think Fnatic just cleans this one out. By the way, I'm with you, though. I'll tell you one reason why Oscar Aaron doesn't get his respect, mate. Because he still looks like a little kid. He has that problem that fucking Leonardo DiCaprio had when he was in his 20s, where he just looks like he's 15. By the way, here's my joke for you, Yamato. Oscar Aaron looks like 21-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio is playing Max Waldo in the LS movie. That's straight fire. If you look at what Max Waldo looks like and look at what Oscar Aaron looks like, just put glasses on him. That is straight fire casting. That is unbelievable casting right there. Exactly. Does this guy look like he'd know how to fence a stolen Black Lotus? That's a joke, by the way, but whatever. Anyway. By the way, I'm with you, though. I actually do think the sad thing for G2 is this. I think, sadly, since they didn't win Winter, and I don't think they're going to win. In fact, I don't even think they're going to make MSI, mate. I think they're going to be third or fourth, sadly. In fact, right now, I'd even feel them maybe to come fourth below MCOY. I think after this split, some fans are going to do that thing where they always blame the people who came in last, unfortunately. So I think some people, Lavrov will get his own fair share, but if you look how he plays, here's the worst thing about Lavrov's style of play. His style of play when he plays bad is he's sort of not doing anything. Those players don't tend to get blamed as much, Yamato. The Hillesangs of the world get blamed because they directly in on your screen. You see them go in and die. I think actually, sadly, Skewmond will get a lot of the hit because Carmine Corp's so good and they've got Yike and all that. Fnatic's got Mickey. I think, sadly, Skewmond will get hit, and I think that's unjustified because I'm with you. Even the flaws of this player, I would be doubling down on this guy like a motherfucker. Like, okay, maybe this year he's not going to be the best jungler and have it all sorted in the play. Mate, this is the play you double down on, because if he gets past it this year, maybe the next 2 years he's like the new Yankos or something, or the new Inspired or something. Like I say, I think the ceiling is very high for this player. Even the negatives you're saying, if he has to sort of play his game and through his, yeah, but that's the thing. He's one of those rare junglers that isn't just told by everyone what to do. It looks like he has that like big worldview. As I say, that's why I've always said Inspired's the LCK jungler to me. He always looked like he had that control style where it's like, I'll decide when I gank. I don't just come when you tell me to like a dog. I come when it makes sense on the map because I know this is what's going to win the game. So I would double down on this Cubond angle. But here's my prediction for you. I think this split, because they won't win and they won't be going to MSI, and it'll be, for G2, it'll be like the end of the world. That's such a terrible result to have. I think what will happen is this. Surely there has to be, even if it's the same 5 players, like some sort of a stylistic change for summer. Because in my opinion, after Winter, you don't panic after Winter. You're in the upper bracket final. Casey had one good series against you and one. Okay, great. You could still have won that split. By the way, if Fnatic won, you probably would have beaten them in the final. You wouldn't be the champion right now. That's all fine. My issue is when you have people like Dylan Falco and you've brought in these players like Skewmod and Labrov to be who they are, you've got to let them be themselves and you've got to give Dylan Falco full control. But put it this way, Yamato, in light of the conversation we had, if G2 comes third or fourth, if I'm Caps, I'm taking Dylan to one side and go, listen, I've just re-signed with the team. I understand you brought these guys in to do that. I understand we played off Hansar all those years, but I've got to have more agency in the game. You've got to make this game so I can carry. So look at what people like Vladdy do on KC. I want to be in that position because, mate, that's the game changer. If Caps ever comes and actually is Caps again, now you'll win some of these games, man. Now you'll be dangerous again. Because I'm with you. A mixture of it is he's not playing as well, but they clearly don't play around him. That's not the team they are anymore. I'm with you. And by the way, if anyone ever tells you, Yamato, I'm really jealous of how Fnatic's playing around Humanoid as their mid laner. What the fuck? What the fuck? That's never happened in human history. Like, I'd start worrying about that, G2. That should be on the fucking blackboard right there. If they're doing Humanoid as a mid laner better than you, Caps, something needs to change, mate. We need to fix that. And also, I'm just going to put this out there. I said this before. This is another area where when someone fails, Yamato, and you look at what they're not doing, you sometimes forget what they can do. I'll tell you what I guarantee Caps misses. those fucking random roams Mickey would do to mid and just get a fucking gank off. The guy was like a second jungler. I think Broken Blade misses it too, mate. Mickey used to even do what I love, like the solo queue, like support jump gank through the brushes. Like he would do some gangster shit, mate. They don't get that from Labrov. He doesn't even attempt those moves, mate. They're not even, again, they're not within his like world view of what he sees in the game, I don't think. He just sticks with Hans Sama and does his, sort of keeps his boss happy, who in my opinion is Hans Sama, not Dylan Falco.
It's just like I just moving away from Mickey. Will like the first time they did it was a horrible mistake. The second time, like this, like I had that take right away. A lot of people did, and it's just aging super well. Like I think in the main thing, especially with how Yike played on G2, like he got away with so much shit he wouldn't get away on any other team because of Mickey. It's like this what he like Yike was the equivalent of, I don't know, like Lance Stroll in Formula One. I don't know if you've
I got so scared when he just said Lance. I was like, we're not back to that. Fuck, I thought we'd let that one go. Okay, Lance Stroll. Okay, we'll keep on that. Stroll. Okay, right.
Well, I don't know if you know about Lance Stroll,
I don't know.
but basically it's like Aston Martin is they bought out like the father of Lance Stroll. I'm blanking on his name. He basically just bought a Formula One spot and he's letting his son drive. And his son is like really running it down. Like he would, anyone else would get fired instantly.
Oh, you mean it's like that shit? Because this is happening in Counter-Strike and other games. It's like when the rich guy owns the team, so his son has to play on the team as well.
Yes,
you're like, Jesus, we have to carry this guy. Like it's pretty like that much, basically, yeah. Right?
Pretty 100% that. Right. Like he's making mistakes and crashing cars. Like if you just look at like everything he's done. I brought that up because Yike got away with some shit. You know, he was basically crashing cars like every other game he was invading. And it's like nobody cared because Mickey Mickey was the cleanup. You know, he was the guy you call. It's like, I need a vacuum 3000, and he would just come sweep up the bodies. You know, it's like, all right, now you do this, now you say this, now you're gonna you behave like this, no problem. Your issue is gone. It's like Mickey was a fixer. And they have nobody like that on G2 anymore. And I always give grace to Caps underperforming because it's always in the context of everything else. There's very certain context that Caps performs really as the best player in. And on the rosters that are catering to that, he performs and he wins you the split. But in the cases of not, 2021 G2 is a good example. Even 2018 Fnatic, when it was the World Championship, they like Caps was underperforming at that Worlds, I would say, in terms of how he was as a player. Later on in his G2 years, 2019, 2020, this is where Caps found his absolute peak. 2018 at Worlds in particular, when they moved back to, of course, Reckless being AD, that team was driven through the side lanes. And Caps in a lot of those games, especially those series against IG, it looked rough. But IG was the team that played through mid, and Caps in those cases was suffering. And I just think when I see Caps underperforming, there's always something greater underlying because he has found form so many times. And G2 as a team, I can see a world where they come into the Fnatic series and they win game one because they just set up like that prep and they just plug all the holes and they just cover all wounds and band-aids. And it's like, it looks really good in the beginning. But then it's like you come into game 2 draft and there's like Lilia, Caitlyn, Braum, Shen. Like, what the fuck is this? Holy shit, we're trying so hard to make a winning bot and a tank top and a jungler that can carry that our composition looks this ugly. It's just putting lipstick on a pig in that moment in time. And I think if G2 can find a way to strategically hide all of their flaws like they did in winter, because in the end, it's like when what we saw in the finals when KC actually figured out what they want to play, they ended up playing Presh, Caitlyn, Urgot in that game 3, and it's like, holy shit, like what happened to G2, you know? And that was after winning games with like Tank Top Sion, the Nivea counter pick into Rise, the Lulu Sivir that they played to like get initiative and let Hans Sama be like in like a carry position. But then the moment the right bans came through, G2 just fell apart. And maybe this early on in the playoffs, they can find like a way to band-aid everything.
Basically, there's two things G2 need to think about, and I want you at home to think about it too. They need to start cooking more, because at the moment they're not actually doing a very good job. They're actually a bit basic bitches. In fact, I don't think Dylan Falco's even had the agency to do a lot of the Dylan Falco fearless drafts everyone hoped for. And at the same time as they need to cook more, they need to simultaneously listen to this show and all the great analysis and overview we've given them. Well, you know what? If they had the Turtle Beach Stealth 700 headset, Yamato, they could both cook and listen to this show at the same time, because it has this cross-play wireless audio system where you can plug in the two things. By the way, it's just a nice headset here. You plug it into two devices at once, and that way, with the touch of a button, you can switch between like a console and a phone, or you can play music, or you can be listening to this show, etc. Also, it has some baller battery life of 80 hours. So if you're one of those people who doesn't religiously remember to put your thing on the charger, you don't need to. You don't need to do it every 3 days. And if it does run out, like a lot of modern features, it has the quick play, the quick charge, the way you just put it on charge for not that long, and you get like an hour or two out of it, and suddenly like maybe you only need 15-20 minutes, and then you still can go out the door and be listening on your commute, going to a friend's house, being in another room in the house. You don't have to rush back to the charger and be a slave to the charger, so you don't have to worry about all the classic things in that sense. I also think, by the way, if I show you them a second, they actually are really sturdy, which is super legit. They don't have that like cheap feel a lot of other ones do. I have a pretty big head, and you can see it fits perfectly on mine. It doesn't at all wreck the ears. Look how small the ear is compared to that. I have a massive head as well. It just fits all the way around. It's really steady duty. By the way, just on their own, these are the type where, because they fit fully around your ears, it has like a mild noise cancelling effect anyway. Also, as it says here, this one has AI mic noise reduction. So if you have a dodgy ass mic, don't worry about that. It'll set it all up. It's got everything. So how do you get one? Well, it's simple. To support our show and get yourself a wonderful Turtle Beach headset, you can go to turtlebeach.com and use the code summoning, easy to remember, SUMMONING, and you will get 10% off your entire order. That's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with the code summoning. Also, they don't only make headsets, by the way. They have seemingly every gaming accessory under the sun. They have things for flight and racing simulators, keyboards, mice, etc., etc. They're all high quality. They all apply, and the 10% applies to all of that. It's site-wide. So when you purchase, I said it before, you know what I'm going to say. They'll obviously ask where you heard about them. If you want to feel really cool, we appreciate if you just buy the product and enjoy the great headset. Why not say Last Free Nation sent you? And then they will know that you not only used our code, but that you enjoy our services. And so shout out to Turtle Beach, shout out to anyone who supports us. Right, I reckon we do a little 5-minute break and then do some Q&A. Yeah,
let's do it.
Let's do it. Right, it's the final section of the show, which is viewer questions. If you want to ask a question, subscribe to the Last Free Nation Discord. There is a channel, SI-questions. Submit them there. Always, if you want me to not say your username, explicitly say it in the question, then I won't do it. And also, there's always way too many questions, which is cool. Submit all the ones you want, but I just pick from them. I might even start not doing them in order. I might be a bit more like all over the place, because to be fair, I do think actually, like I said, it was always the same names, I think. So I'll try and pick amongst people now when I go back. So let me see. Right, wait there a second. Right, there's a question. I'll also address some questions just for the sake of being polite. There's a question by a guy called Canon C or something, where I'll just say, he says, like, he understands that we can't talk. We're not going to address that. Essentially, he sort of asks a question, Yamato, that sort of is about, like, fans being really weird with their behavior, and essentially I don't want to talk about that, because I actually think when you talk about things like it sort of encourages people to do that if they think it bothers you. So we're going to leave that one, mate. It's a perfectly fine question to ask, but it's just not so much. That's the sort of thing you talk about when you're retired. I think you don't want to talk about while there's active people who might be nuts to you. So Tallahassee Riot Supervisor, here we go. How do you rate this LEC roster swap? Essentially, you're going to see where he's going with this. He wants to do a swap of G2, send Labrov in exchange for Paris. What would you think of that move? Too crazy? Would you do it? Would you pull the trigger?
I think it would improve BDS, but I don't think it would improve. I just don't rate Paros so hard right now. The angle that I like from it, right, if anything, is just reuniting, Mr. Paros and Skumond. But the main issue for me is that this is not a caps-driven team. And maybe it cements further the identity of making it a Skumond, Hansama-driven team. And maybe, the working relationship of Paros and Skumond would work better. I just don't think it will solve the main issue, and that is just Caps being like a side character. But I just think, the main thing for Labrov for me is that still Hansama and Labrov are doing well in lane. That's something that they deserve praise for, and I think that's why I mentioned before, they are match made in heaven and hell. It's like they work together well, but they also share the exact same weaknesses that are becoming so apparent when they are losing. So I would be worried about losing that part of their gameplay, the fact that they actually can play like Kalista lanes and win lane hard and compete with some of the best. I don't think Hansama Parus sending them into a Mickey and upset, I just would be worried about Parus in those cases.
I'm with you. I just don't see how the G2 side of it makes any sense. Like, what do they gain from this move? Like, I agree with you. The BDS one's a bagger because we already saw Labrov on that team with Ice already. And I actually think if you just added him to current BDS, I know they looked like a joke with their final placing. They could have been a playoff team. Like, they were that close in a bunch of the... I think if you add Labrov, they could actually be like fifth best team or something and contend with the MCoys and the G2s of the world, maybe even. The problem is the G2 side. I'm with you. I do think the idea of putting Paris with Skumon's interesting because obviously that's where he got his hype. The problem I have is I don't think he would fit with Hansam, and I don't think he would fix the problems in G2, unfortunately. So I don't like one side of it, basically. And also, spoiling that move will just never happen. Franny Boy says, what is the most bizarre pre-game ritual you know? Have you ever heard of any in esports that were really weird?
Honestly, in my experience, esports been pretty tame. Like if anything, like I like the earlier days were very very wild because they weren't necessarily tied to pre-game rituals, but there was basically the idea of like partying into prostitution, of soliciting it, and then gaming. If those things weren't in place, there wouldn't be a performance, and for obvious reasons, I'm not mentioning any names. But there was definitely eras where players were like rock stars, and there's many stories in LEC and EU, but there's also stories out of China as well in terms of how wild some of these guys were and the demands that they set for the performance.
All right, here's the thing. I will tell you, I know what you mean. If people don't know, sports stars are way more famous for having some crazy superstitions. I'll give you a couple of really good ones. One that'll blow your mind. A lot of people aren't aware of this one, bizarrely. Michael Jordan had a superstition, Yamato, where in college he played for North Carolina, the Tar Heels, right? He used to wear his old college shorts under his NBA shorts every game of his NBA career. And they were really old at this point. That was when he was like a fucking like a young man, and then that's a real superstition. Similarly, in hockey, Sidney Crosby, the amazing Pittsburgh Penguins player, had this really weird superstition where once his stick was taped, it had to be taped a very specific way, and nobody's allowed to touch it after that. If someone touches it, he has to undo it all again and retape it on some like OCD shit. So sports stars are way crazy with some of the shit they're doing. I mean, like I said, Michael Jordan's wearing an old pair of shorts for like fucking 15 years or something mental. And by the way, balling out with control and winning all the championships. That's just weird. In esports, it's not really that much that bad. The only thing I can think of that's comparable, that's almost as bad, is... Well, be careful how we say this, but here's the thing. I'm Thorin. I can do what the fuck I want. Stop me if you don't like that. But I will just say there was a famous 1.6 Counter-Strike player. I don't think people will be able to guess this one, so I'm not worried. Where basically he wasn't just somebody who smoked weed. He actually had that thing where I think it is quite pathetic. He was actually addicted to weed, Yamato, as in he couldn't function without it. And this guy, because he's American, he used to play all the time high when he was at home. And it got so that he had to then play at matches while high. And the worst story I ever heard was when this motherfucker was at an event in China, he had to get his team manager to go and find weed in China so that he could play the games, because he kept going, I'm feeling all that. And like, that is just, like, that's not even just like weird. That's just a stupid one. Because by the way, I don't even know what the consequences of having weed in China would be if you got caught. Like, that could be some enormous. And lastly, mate, you're a professional. What the fuck are you doing where you have to have drugs to be able to play because you do that at home? Like, that's so immature to me. So anyway, that's the only one I can think of, because to me that's pretty bizarre that you'd need to go and do some shit like that to play a fucking competitive video game.
Hey, coincidentally, we had a player in the LEC that had the exact same thing, and he had a stipulation in his contract.
Oh, yeah, you sold the story, right, on Sackdown or something, right? Yeah.
It's like, But once again, I think people can figure out who it is because that story has been shared. But I don't feel at liberty to say his name.
No, I feel like you could guess that one. That is a guessable one. Put it that way. Right, Nixon. This is for me apparently. At what level compared to his prime does Simple have to play to make FaZe a contender again? Because if you don't know, Simple's been out of the game for a while, and he's coming back to stand in now for FaZe Clan, who themselves have fallen off being a top team. I would say, here's the thing, it doesn't have to be anywhere close to his prime. Like, his prime was so high, if he's like 80% of his prime, they'd have a chance. Because crucially in their team, I don't think all their players suck. Like, I think Carrigan's one of the best IGLs ever. You give him a player like Simple, 80% of his prime, Orping, he's going to get a lot done with that. I think Elise is going to play awesome. Frozen's already really good. I actually think people miss. I think Simple coming to that team is going to immediately make them relevant again, and they're going to be in the mix to do things. They probably won't win, but they'll be like at least battling the Mouses and the Falcons type teams in the playoffs, in my opinion. Architect of Korean esports based Joe. Right, this is actually a question that's not about MMA, so don't worry about that. He says, what is a more exciting MMA matchup for you? Owner versus Bin or Showmaker versus Carrier? Is it implied they all do MMA? I know Bin does, but do the others all do MMA? Like, what's the point of this one? Or is he doing it because like that's like Chad versus Chad, and then like little wimpy guys like Showmaker and Carrier is like that South Park one where Jimmy fought that other guy? Is that what he's implying? Is that what we're trying to imply here?
I think he's just like guesstimated their weight class and.
Oh right, he's put them in this. Oh, I see. Right, okay.
Oh shit!
Say, surely Bin just bodies Owner though. Come on.
Has to be.
Ben looks like a beast, doesn't he? Come on.
Yeah. I think Ben strikes me as the way he punches, that there's some experience there. But I think Owner, does he have kickboxing experience? Am I crazy?
Something like that, I believe. Yeah.
He has some kind of experience. Because I do remember like Owner being very active on the sports side growing up, you know. I don't remember if it was kickboxing.
I mean, because he's Korean, you'd assume Taekwondo. It's normally the Korean one. I don't know. I'm trying to look. Is it kickboxing? Let's see. I can't find anything when I Google it, unfortunately. But there is a video of him kicking someone. There is a video of him doing like a kick. So I assume it is like his skills or some shit.
I'd imagine Ben would win that one.
It just says here he's like a fitness freak. Maybe it's just because he works out a lot or something. Who knows?
Because it's like Ben looks a little bit heavier, you know, that matters. He's been also very interested, like he's intrigued. Light is confirming that apparently Owner did Taekwondo. So
as far as I know, I think most Korean kids when they're a kid do Taekwondo. It's just like a thing the parents put you in or something. So maybe he's good. Who knows?
No, I gotta lean on Ben though. Showmaker and Korea, I feel like Showmaker carries enough pain that could make him go crazy. You know,
what a mental reason they'd win the fight though. Like, as though like in Yamato's version of this shonen anime, like Kerry is just doing all like proper fighting, because you can imagine Kerry would be really like high level technical fighter, you know, lots of point fighting, parrying, and then what happens is in the moment where Kerry like hits him and wins him, so for a moment Showmaker goes down to one knee. In that moment, as he breathes out, he just thinks of all these images coming to his mind. Canyon, you'll be nothing without Canyon. Naguri was over in the LPL playing that. No. And he just comes up, Kelly. They just does like some fucking crazy like kung fu kick to carry his crane, kicks him, knocks him out instantly. There you go. Problem solved. Just the image of Kellen in his brain drives him. Exactly.
Tell me I'm wrong. Does Korea win? Does Korea win? The Showmaker wins, no?
Showmaker wins that one. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also just feel like I say, that fight, the Bin Owner one, that could be pretty hype. They're pretty muscular guys. They're in shape. Shit, Showmaker Carrier. Someone's going to win by giving the other one a paper cut or something. What the fuck is this shit? Like, these guys are tapping out instantly, mate. What are you talking about? There's no way. Carrier looks like fucking Yoda from Star Wars or something, man. That's how his body shape's built. He's like some fucking guy in the back of Luke Skywalker. Oh, yes. Play Ash, I will. IDCs, the meta will be like, I'm out. Get me the fuck out.
Bro, like, my man, what? This question just invited you to flame the shit out of how Korea's body type is, man. Fine, relax, man.
Listen. That's what this show is.
You said he's Yoda, man. Come on. Jesus.
Listen, Yoda was one of the most powerful Jedis ever. But I tell you what, he was built like shit. He was built like something off the end of a pencil, mate. Like a young girl would have. Fucking hell. I'm out. I'm fucking full. But this way, if they ever did one of those trolley movies or those little troll things from the end of pencils, Kevin could just star in it as himself. He wouldn't even need any sort of graphics. He just walk in, hey, he'd be the same size as them. Hey, what's up?
Anyway, bro, I'm happy the T1 fans they didn't make it to this part of the episode. Like we're gonna get hits put out on us, bro.
Don't worry about any of that.
Jesus.
Don't worry about that. Anyway, next question is gonna be. Here's a good one. Actually, this isn't that interesting because it's one of those ones where we've had it a million times. Someone was just sort of asking, like, if he wins Worlds, is Chovy the GOAT? It's like, it doesn't work that way. Like, I don't want to even answer that because I'm getting bored of it, mate. Like, to me, being the GOAT isn't actually about, like, Raw championships only. They all seem to think the championship is what makes you the GOAT or not. The question you have to ask is this. If he wins the championship, did he already play like the GOAT and then the championship confirmed he's the GOAT? That makes some sort of a sense to me. The idea that, like, pretty sweet, there's a reason why I've never heard anyone have the discussion of, like, Showmaker could be the GOAT. He won Worlds ages ago. That's never even been on the table because his actual body of work didn't live up to it. It didn't even suggest the question. Here's a better question. Canopa says, excluding friends and family, who do you think has the most recognizable voice to you? So aside from the people close to it, who would be the voice that if you heard, you would instantly recognize it? Is there someone that stands out in that sense?
Bro, the first thing that came to my mind is just that snippet, EA Sports.
Oh, right. Okay. That's a pretty iconic voice, yeah.
Bro, that was a way too big part of my childhood. Like, that is, I heard that every morning, like, in Sweden, it's like at least the group of friends I was hanging out with, it was always like all the EA Sports games. That one to me, or like the second one that comes to mind is just Earl Grey Jones. It's just like the whole Mufasa voice, that.
Oh, right. It's not. What's his name? It is Earl something.
Did I say Earl Grey Jones? Was that a T?
Yeah, you added the T. It's Earl something Jones, but what is it? Earl Jones. James Earl Jones. There you go. James Earl Jones. We know who you meant, though. Yeah, Mufasa, Darth Vader. Yeah, of course.
Yes.
What's his name? He was also that fucking character in, like, fucking... Wasn't he the guy in, like, Conan the Barbarian as well? The one like, you will go on the Tree of Woe. He was that guy too, I think. Yeah, he was loads of great characters. I don't actually know for this. What's funny is for this one, it could even be an esports caster, to be fair. Like, if I think of some of the great esports commentators, they have incredibly recognizable voices. Think about, like, Tasteless or like Anders in CS. By the way, in League, it's a bit harder because they change everything. I think in the modern day, the voice that speaks to me the most is Atlas. I think he's got a fucking sick voice. I even love, one thing I love about his casting style is it's quite unusual. His casting style always sounds like he can't believe what the player's doing. Like, what is Canyon doing? And he's going in again. But somehow that gets me mega hyped. When he does it, it's not annoying me. That actually gets me on the edge of my seat. I'm going for it. His only flaw is he does actually unironically love Beryl. But you know what? We're all human. We're all just human. That just shows he's not a god. He's just a human like the rest of us. Right. Nadnerb says, are Keen, Canyon, and Chovy the greatest top side of all time? What do you think?
Canyon, Keen, Chovy.
It's a pretty good one, I've got to say. It's a pretty good set of players, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it's like in the competition. It's always weird to make that comparison because like no one has the privilege of playing together so long as the T1 roster did. And if you make a comparison, it needs to be on a year-by-year basis. It can't be anything else because nobody has been together for that long. It's only like G2 maybe in the past. It's like JDG, like their roster that they put together with of course, Mr. 369, Knight, and Kanavi, like that was also just a crazy one in terms of how good they were the entire year. Like looking at it through that context, it's like all the other pairings. It was never about the three. It was always about the two. The other one that comes to mind is, of course, the Damwon one. Nuguri, Canyon, Showmaker. Once again, Canyon showing up here. Because their level of dominance was also like super insane considering the bot lane they had. So I guess those guys would be in the conversation. But
I'm with you. Those, like, the other one aside from the Showmaker and the JGG one was actually the G2 one. Mate, if you want to go and look at peak Wonder Yankos Cap, that's, even though it's Western, that can fuck with any team, mate. That was really strong. That was a fucking, that's a pretty good top side, especially if you go to season 9 around MSI. That's fucking cracked, mate. You saw people like T1 couldn't handle that.
And it's hard to put them in that category too because of the inconsistency of Ning. But when Ning was on, Ning, Rookie, and Deshai were so much better than everybody else. But the knock against them is that it was like in terms of
one tournament too.
One tournament, and also in the context of league, I do think that was like one of the weakest years for Korea due to KT being the number one team, and not necessarily because it's KT, because they had an insane roster, but because they had the issue of their mid lane. Like UCal being in that roster just didn't belong at all. So I can see arguments for Damwon, but I can see the Keen Canyon Chovy one too. It's just
I actually think this is a good one. Normally, when they ask you about an active set of players, you always have to go, no, of course not. They have to do more in their career, the historical ones. But I actually think it's a rare case, but you might be right. If I look, first of all, in isolation, they're all-time great players. But together, they have also been extremely fucking good, mate. Really fucking good. Like, there's a reason they've been able to swap out the bot lane. Like, they're just so cracked. I also think, yeah, those players somehow have merged together. And by the way, on paper, that shouldn't work. Like, all three of those players were like the player in their team. Like, Damwon played around Canyon. Every team Keen was on basically played around Keen. Chovy was just the... And remember, he famously... This is what people forget about Chovy's progression. Chovy used to be the really weird loner guy who did play like it was solo queue and just farm and not talk to anyone. And you had no clue if you were his teammates. Is he going to join this fight? Is he fighting? Is he in the side lane? What's going on here? Like, these players have all come along so much. Like, the way they've all blended and actually sacrificed for each other is incredible. I think it might be. I think it's a pretty good shout. Could be the best top side of all time. Right, wait there a second. Fucking hell, I don't know if I can even be bothered with this. I can't be bothered. Believe it or not, the producers submitted a question, but it's just too long, mate. I can't be bothered. It's way too long. The problem is, he's trying to ask something that has like 9 different components in it. So I can't be asked, mate. Like, not today. Right. Let me see. Okay, here's one. By the way, I'll ask you this first. Are you a fan of James Cameron's films?
I need to know the list. What did James Cameron
Terminator, Aliens, Avatar, Titanic.
Yeah.
Okay. So this guy says, after watching, Milkman22 says, after watching Thorin's Kubrick and Nolan videos, I basically did tier lists of these directors and which films I prefer. He said, I ended up rewatching James Cameron's Avatar with a friend, and it really turned my head in a new way. He doesn't mention the reason why, though, for some reason. He goes, what are your thoughts on Avatar? And could you drop some breadcrumbs to hold me over until the Cameron tier list? Thanks, as always. Love the show. What do you think of Avatar? Were you a fan?
I like those movies, but it's like for other reasons than I would enjoy. Like I think in terms of execution of the budget, it really seeps through. And I think my memories tied to Avatar is the experience watching them in a cinema with the 3D glasses on, with the sound, with everything on. I think if you experience it like this, then I think they really like nailed it. But in terms of like watching it at home in the context of like my soul, I was like, I have a nice TV, but it just isn't the same experience. Because I think the budget to really seep through needs to be in that environment. And I think if I contextualize it to that viewing experience, I do think it's really insane. But it's not something that I would rush to watch again, because I feel like almost you're paying for the experience rather than the other way around. Like if I think about Nolan movies, I hate watching them in cinema because his audio mixing is terrible.
Right, that's true.
I watched Tenet and I just don't hear shit. I'm
that's
like,
true.
What
What's
is
hard
this?
To hear, for sure.
And then it's like I read up
you
online.
Need headphones for that movie, yeah.
And it's like I read up online and people had the same problem, and apparently he's just a dickhead about it, like Mr. Nolan. He only wants it to be in like Dolby 5.1. I don't know, some specific audio. Doesn't want to mix it to anything else. Doesn't want to adjust it. He's like, if you don't watch the movie in this way, then you're not supposed to watch it. But I guess you have to be a little bit eccentric if you're operating on that level. So in the context of that, I like the Avatar movies, but for very different reasons than what I usually watch. It's like one time stop, watch it, experience it, loved it. Because the story in itself, it's rather generic. It's basically Pocahontas with a bigger budget, right? It's like, oh, you get into these foreign lands, you have an understanding of it, you try to integrate, and then you realize that the group you're a part of is trying to rob everything. And then the second one was just like a continuation of that like story. It's like, oh, there's a challenge that you have to defeat. Oh, there's a downfall. It's just like the usual cookie cutter process. And with that in mind, I guess I've said my piece. What's your angle?
I'm going to assume he's being sarcastic if he watched those videos and knows I definitely don't fuck with James Cameron's Avatar. Like, the worst thing is, here's the thing, I'm not an idiot, so I don't do that thing where I make out like things I don't like are a 0 out of 10. Avatar's just like a 5 out of 10 film. For me, it's just a mid-ass film. Now, I will say, as a piece of a caveat, 3D vision doesn't work on me. I have that like color deficiency where it doesn't quite fully work.
Oh.
Like they sort of stand out a bit, but I never get the effect you guys do where like an arm's coming out the screen. It just looks like almost like it's like stands out a little bit from the screen. I never get that crazy thing of a spear coming. So first of all, the whole aspect, which to me, that's not even cinema to me. That's more like an interactive like Hollywood Universal Pictures ride or something, you know, like, so I don't get that effect. And then secondly, I think that movie is just mid as fuck. It's not really the worst movie ever. I could watch it on a plane or something, but it's not a movie I will ever rewatch. I mean, as you say, it is literally just the same storyline as Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas, and even the cartoon Fern Gully. It's just the exact same plot line if you ever saw these films. Not even particularly done more interesting. It's actually that's the saddest part. Essentially, the reason why I don't like Avatar isn't even just the film. The film's whatever. It's that it's such a waste of James Cameron's fucking talent. The idea this guy spent his time making Titanic and 2 Avatar movies when he had unlimited budget because of how much money he made from those 2 films. Bro, this is the guy who was one of the best directors ever. You think about Terminator, Terminator 2, Aliens. There's even a film he wrote because at the time he was married to that woman, Catherine Bigelow, the one who did like Zero Dark 30 and stuff, and what do you call it? The fucking Hurt Locker. She directed a film he wrote the script for in the 90s. That's a mad sleeper classic. It's the one called Strange Days, where it's like a cyberpunk type film, Yamato. It's from the 90s, so it's the era where people know like the millennium's coming up and people don't know what's going to happen. And in it, the tech vision in this sci-fi film is they have a thing that looks a bit like a mini disc, if you remember what those were, those little like things after CDs. And basically, it's like there's sort of a VR tech, but you can record your first person experience in the VR tech. And so in this film, this guy who's the lead character is someone who's an underground dealer in those recordings. So I'll give you an example. The movie opens with him watching one of these things, and it's someone doing like a robbery. And then the guy goes to jump over like the gap in a building and falls and dies. It's like, holy fuck, I got to experience it. And so the movie's a super dope idea because the idea is like he's trying to track down a murderer, and there's this technology involved where you can record your experiences and see it from there. But anyway, it's like a super cool like sci-fi idea. The idea that the guy who can come up with films like that, if you get a limited budget, do something amazing, mate. Don't do like a little kids movie or Titanic. To me, like I get on one level what he's doing, which is that's more about the technical accomplishment. Like if you don't get it, guys, Titanic's about the idea he built that giant ship that really did turn and he filmed it all like that. The idea of Avatars, it's all computer graphics. He's trying to do something future. But my problem is the actual substance of these movies I think isn't very good. Like it doesn't interest me. There's nothing that makes me buy into that. But this way, people might not like certain Christopher Nolan movies. I'll watch every movie he makes because there's something about like his vision for what he's trying to do that hooks me, and I'm willing to go with it. I'm out on James fucking Cameron from years ago. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Hellfire 206. The problem with this first part is, obviously, we just mean as a joke because we would never do this to someone real. He says, if you could fire one player and all footage of them playing into the sun, who would it be? In a jokey Minecraft sense, of course. Is there a player you'd like to just get rid of and their footage?
I had one, but now, like the team he's on has implemented a 6-man roster, and he's now on the bench.
Okay.
That was my guy. And if anybody, if I have my second guy, it was the guy I wanted UmTi to pair with in OMG, Moham. Because the main thing is, for me, it would have been fine if Moham was just a very, very bad player that got a shot because Kellen was underperforming on DK. But his in-between, where he plays as bad as he is and had the audacity on stream to flame his teammates to a friend of his on stream in a very, very harsh manner, that just rubs me the wrong way, bro. Be bad, but do it in your own corner. The sheer arrogance. Come on, man. The sheer arrogance you need to have to flame your teammates when this is your level is crazy. So I think that's his gameplay and his account, let's say, into the sun. And then he can go study and do something else.
For me, it's not even that there's like a bad player I do it to, because I have the luxury in esports. I don't have to watch bad players usually. So it's going to be a player that isn't bad, but it's more like the hinted players are like, and it annoyed me. And I've got to tell you, this is going to be right on my bias. The two I'm immediately thinking of. And by the way, both of them had times they were good. But when they were bad, I'm picking when they were in their bad splits. I would take fucking TES Wayward, and I would take fucking V5 Fortic, and you are in the sun, motherfucker, and all footage that you ever existed is in there burning up with you. Like, that's what you deserve for what you did to Lord Rookie and Knight. Like, you are a fucking disgrace. How dare you? You should fucking apologize. You should tithe 10% of your career earnings from here on forwards to them, and you should literally every fucking month you should call them up and just go, I'm sorry. They won't even go, who is it? They'll go, I get it, bro, and then fucking block your number. Get Wayward into the fucking sun right now. That motherfucker. He even then hit Rookie afterwards. That motherfucker.
Well, luckily they are in some shape or forms, both of them in the sun right now.
It doesn't matter at this point. I don't exactly. Right, here's a real league one. This is actually a real league one. Believe it or not, Pounder 420 has an actual analytical question. He says, has aiming been worth his gold investments both this year and all time? Obviously, he used to be on KT. Now, if you get the framing there, Yamato, if people don't know, especially on KT, aiming was famous that you obviously have to put loads of gold resource into him, but he can either he can carry a lot of really hard games, but he can also throw some games. So essentially, that's what he's sort of asking is, was it worth the investment? What do you think?
I have to think back at, I think definitely last year was a really big one for him, because I think the DK was not a team at all without his level of performance. I think aiming in his career has been kind of similar to Gumiushi in a way. I do think that he relied on very specific context in the meta to perform super good. Like he was kind of reverse Gumiushi in the sense that when Kaiser, Ezreal, Zeri was in the meta and those were the strongest champions, aiming was insanely good. And when I think about like the majority of his career, it's like Leave is a player that comes to mind, but Leave would be like the giga extreme version of that, where as a player he could have really, really good performances, but then you could see some mistakes that would just be like mind-boggling. It's like, what the hell just happened? In terms as a player, I think the main issue I've always had with aiming is that if I just look at his body of work when it comes to the context of his final series of a year or a playoffs or anything, I always felt like I've been disappointed with aiming. I think his regular split performance is good, but when it comes to pushing his team over the line, it just doesn't seem, he's just never seemed good enough to do so. Like he's just not a big game player. And I think that's like the biggest knock, whether he was like on when he was playing on Afrika or he was playing on Damwon or even KT, because I think that he is partial to the blame of why KT couldn't beat T1 as well. He was very, very quiet in that series, in my opinion. And I think that would be the main knock. So the main question is he worth that? As the point of comparison is hard for me, because I do think aiming is a player that belongs in a top 4 team, top 3 team regionally, but he will never overtake a Viper or a Ruler when it matters the most, and not even a Gumiushi either.
The key thing for me is, if I look at the context that he says this year and all time, the answer is yes, but it's contextual. It's yes, because look at the squads he's on. If you're on the D+ he was on last summer, mate, he has to be the win condition. If you're on that KT roster team, he's also a win condition. It's another player that can carry the whole game for you. Like, so on those teams, I think it was worth the gamble, even though I agree with you, he has clear flaws. One of my problems I have is this. I just think for the role he plays, his flaws are a little bit too much of a downside. It's why I would always, in any year, opt with the Viper or the Ruler angle. And those are just like much more responsible players. My problem with this guy is he absolutely can carry some unbelievable games. He can also throw some like a motherfucker. And I also do think, by the way, that when you put him in playoffs and international, he always looked a bit worse. He was really good in regular season. That's why I actually do think summer last year for regular season, he should have been the MVP. I think he earned it in that one. I think he did play awesome. But yeah, my problem, and I agree, he can go back to a free kick. The guy always had hands, by the way. He always even had like a crazy like ability to go in and go fucking crazy in a team fight. My issue just is, if you're going to be ADC and I'm going to essentially, like you say, invest all my golden resource into you and play around you, I have to believe you're going to be like prime ruler and just carry that fight from beginning to end, and I can rely on that. If I think you might just flash in and get blown up instantly, that's really hard to play around. It's hard for me to have confidence and to peel and to follow up for you, etc. So in these teams, I agree. But yeah, put it this way, there's a reason why he isn't as good as the Vipers and the Rulers and the Deaths of the world when they're at their peak. They were better players. I mean, they were just more responsible with their lead, you know. By the way, do you want to do a few more? Do you want to cut?
Yeah, let's rock and roll. We
can do a few more, okay? Right.
Sassy, this is a shorter episode.
Says Paul Redeye, so he means Paul Challoner from CS and Call of Duty and all those games, has gotten mentioned a few times on Foreplay by Richard and Thorin. As someone who was never around for his golden age, what was it about him that made him a legend? First of all, if you're from the UK, he himself is a massive fan of Formula One. And if you know the old classic commentator in Formula One was a guy called Murray Walker, that's a really iconic voice in sports. And Red Eye's voice already sounds a bit like that. And as far as I know, that was a hero of his. And he would always make his voice. So first of all, he had a brilliant voice for casting. Even though it's a bit nasal, because Murray Walker's like, and here he is coming around. But if you know British sport, that is a classic. Like, that's our version of the American, like a welcome to the NFL on Sunday. Here we are. Like, that's our version of the voice that you associate with sport. So first of all, he had a great voice. Then secondly, because he's like a little bit arrogant, but also like it's justifiable, he's talented. He had like very good on-camera presence and sort of swagger. Like, one thing that's cool is when he was younger, he was just a talent. But in his older days, he would have that sort of elder statesman vibe. Like, he was basically, here's the analogy for you. At the end, in games like CS, where he'd be the host, he was like our caster Dongjun guy or whatever, you know that. Like, he's the guy that when he came out and said, hey, welcome to ESL Cologne, we're going to welcome on stage Frizz. That was baller. That would give you the sense of this is an epic esports moment because he's an all-timer. So I would say he was a guy with a lot of talent, and he's a guy who understood how to use his persona, etc. I don't know if you watched much CS stuff when Red Eye was around. Did you ever see him do much?
You know, it's like when I was watching CS, I was watching it in such a, let's say, vague manner that nothing really registers, like who's casting, whatever. I was just watching to watch, you know. I got my memories are so insanely vague. I don't know who was casting. I just remember it was good. You can tell me, right? Because I watched during 1.6, and then I watched the online era of Titan, really smurfing it, and then basically the like the Fnatic era with Crims and all of Meister and JW. That's basically all the CS I've watched. So if he casted in between there, then I probably heard the man.
This question is mad because he's going to ask a question about 2014, but we'll see. If you can't answer it, tell me. But if you want, we'll try. Big Boy says, for the entirety of season 4, so 2014, what would your all-pro team be? So essentially, who's the best in each role from 2014? Can you remember that far back?
Oh, shit. The tricky thing about that, right, is just that Samsung White was not that good.
No. They were they weren't the best team until Worlds, yeah.
That's the trickiest part of that. I'm trying to remember. Like, I know that Faker was playing well, but he couldn't drag his team
and shit like that. Yeah,
he couldn't drag his team, and then in the end, Pawn was just so insane. It's like the context of the earlier parts. I'm trying to remember like how good KT was as well. Oh, this is difficult.
That was a down year for KT.
This is a question for you, Thorin, bro. You're the Wizards. I'm just gonna lean on Samsung White, you know, and then maybe throw a little Uzi in there or something, you know. But I didn't even watch LPL. I just know Worlds, you know.
I'll tell you right now, the two Samsung White players I'm taking are Dander and Matty. I think those guys were cracked and they were unbelievable at their roles. ADC, I'm actually going to take Name. That was the year he was mega. He just was bad at Worlds. He was unbelievable before that. He was better than Def, put it that way. Everyone hated us when we said it on some of the Inside, but if you go back and watch, I think he was unbelievable in the LPL. The problem is the solo lanes. That's the trickier one for me here, because actually there's not as many obvious people like the standouts in that sense, because I'm trying to think who I would take for this. Like you say, I wouldn't take Faker probably. Top lane.
What was the top laner of that OMG?
Going.
Yeah,
the thing with him was he was good, but I don't know if he was the best in the world, though. I'm trying to think. Because if you remember, the Samsung teams were more sort of weak side top laners, like Looper obviously isn't it. Acorn was good. By the way, Flame was good in spring, but then he fell off in summer. That's when he kind of phoned it in. I don't actually know. Top lane might be the hardest one for that one. I think top lane might be the hardest one. Mid lane, who would I take for that, though? Because it's going to, in theory, be a Korean, you'd think. If it's not Faker, who could it even be? I think that's a tricky one.
Dade was so good leading up to Worlds.
Yeah, Dade was mega in spring. He was unbelievable. Actually, you know, maybe it can be Dade. He was good in the LCK. He almost went back to back. He was very, very good. Could be Dade for mid lane. I don't hate that. He was, if you remember back then, by the way, if he played like a Twisted Fate or something, it was game over. Ezreal, he was unreal. The top lane's the hardest one, I'll give you that. Can top lane be going? I don't know about that. The problem is the guy who played on EDG was Koro One, who just was a weak sider. Smeb wasn't around yet. Oh, actually, you know what? Save from Najin was pretty good, actually. He was very good at this time as a top laner. He was a carry top laner. There you go. I'm going to go Save, Dandy, Dade, Name, and Mata. There you go. There's my team. Right. This question's just for me, I guess. It says, Halso says, what are the chances we can get Doa for Spit Roast Part 2? Right, that sounds like the most insane out-of-context comment you've ever heard anyone say, and you think I actually just accidentally read a DM there, but I didn't. That wasn't a DM from Monty. Spit Roast was an arc we did on our 4-player movie show where the joke of why it was Spit Roast is each week, one of us 3 had to pick a movie we like, but that we know the other 2 won't, and then they spit roast us, as it were, by both going fucking in on us. So, for example, like, I picked a movie that was like that Guy Ritchie one, Revolver, because I knew Monty would hate that fucking movie. Monty picked that one, The 13th Warrior, with Antonio Banderas. So we all went for different movies. So the idea of having Dora for it would be pretty good. The problem is, though, he would surely be the one getting spit roasted because Dora has some like insanely bad nostalgia movies that he likes. Like, this isn't a joke. I believe he's told the story publicly. I'm surely not breaking any confidence here. Unironically, when we all used to live in Korea 10 years ago, Dora would actually try to get people to watch the Star Wars Christmas special, which was a TV special from like the 70s or something mental that is just complete garbage. Like, he would actually make people try and sit down and watch that. So it's like he would be a good shout for it, but I don't think we'll ever have a guest for that show, quite frankly. It's sort of a 3-man show. The problem is there's too many questions about LFN here. Let me see what's another good one. Here's a good one for you. The dog says, listen carefully, is there a greater than 50% chance that the following statement is true? The remainder of the international tournaments and LCK splits this year will be won by either Hanwha Life or GenG. Is it greater than 50% that that's true? International and LCK. It's quite a good question, actually. It's well framed. Is it greater than 50% chance?
Oof. It's like there's 3 LPL teams, 4 one extra team for LPL LCK, right? Because they're gonna have like one of that qualifier. Yep. I think anyone else is like disqualified. I'm just thinking straight percentages.
And technically,
right?
You have to think about the fact that MSI is quite soon, so it's got to be a team that's good now. Probably is going to win that one, right?
Oof. It does sound reasonable, like that it's like 50 to maybe over 50, right? Like the main thing is that there's going to be a 3rd team out of LCK that is also the enemy of the statement, right? A T1 at Worlds.
Yeah, but are we really that worried about them winning the tournament? Yeah. You know, that's the problem, isn't it?
I don't think they're gonna do it. If they do it, then League of Legends is over.
That's why I think it's a good question. The reason it's a good question is because the LCK part is very likely. The idea it's going to be Hanwha Life or GenG seems very likely. So that part already nails that part for you. Then there's only, essentially, we're not going to count EWC. There's only MSI and Worlds after that. Now, is the idea, bearing in mind T1 doesn't look like they're going to do a miracle faker wins world yet. Bearing in mind that's not going to happen. This should be one of the most wide open worlds ever. I actually do think I think he's right. I agree with you. It wouldn't be like 90%, but it would probably be like 70% chance that this happens if we had those two teams. Especially because the problem with the LPL is, first of all, the LPL is so competitive, they might not even send the best team every time. And then secondly, as we pointed out with TES, and no one's even seen anyone legend play internationally, who can know how these teams will play? Maybe, by the way, they could all fuck around and win, but no one can know that right now, I'm afraid. And as we pointed out a million times, I'm just getting a bit bored of seeing how good TES is in LPL and how insane they look, and then knowing that I'm going to look like a moron when I say they're going to be good internationally. Like, that script got a bit boring a few years ago at this point in time, but oh well, load up again. There's only actually 2 more questions, so I think we'll just do them both and then wrap. So Jay says, hi, Thorin and Yamato. If you had a team, it's another old school one. If you had a team, listen to this. Okay, he's making a super team here. If you had a team in 2015, so he wants to make it in 2015 now, that's the following roster. It's Smeb top lane, Score jungle, Rookie mid lane, and then the bot lane is Praying Gorilla, and his coach, for some reason, is Song. I don't know why Song's the coach. Whatever. Maybe a DRX fan, who knows? Would this roster challenge Faker and T1 for international wins for years to come? Would that be a great roster to you?
I feel like the biggest issue of Rox Tigers was always mid lane had nothing to do in this conversation. To put a Rookie
He's putting Rookie in there, mate. I know.
I think
IG Rookie at that.
I think this is fucking real, by the way. I think this is real. Because as much as people like to hype up the Marin, who was really insane 2015, I think the proximity of level between Smeb and Marin, I don't think that was ever like the deciding factor. It's like that Worlds run that they did in 2015, it was like Faker and T1 were the first ones to realize how broken Kassadin is, and they centered their whole draft around it by first picking the strongest jungler possible and then just slamming Rise. And they did just ahead of the meta. And if they had Rookie in that team, especially after how good Rookie was in LPL, that particular Rookie was insane 2015. I think they could compete and even go so far to win. Kuro was a problem, sadly.
And by the way, I'll tell people, because you're going to remember that was the worlds where IG failed. That was the worlds where where fucking Kakao had the 300 damage Skarner. If you ever go and watch, Rookie was trying his best to carry those games, mate. He just couldn't. It was impossible. And also, if you don't know, that was the era of IG that you couldn't even name the bot lane if I asked you to. You couldn't name them. You wouldn't get both names, I guarantee you right now. So if you can't even mention the names, how are we judging them all? Notice with Faker, I don't even remember who was he playing with then. We all know all his fucking teammates, mate. So I actually think, by the way, that is an insane roster. That roster, by the way, probably wins everything. Think about how insane that is. Like, the top side alone is like the greatest top side ever. It's like Smeb, Score, Rookie. And then what is my bot lane? Probably the best go-even shot-calling bot lane to ever play Liga. Look, the Song guy, I don't know why you put that one in. I just stuck with No Fear or something, or Tarbe or something. Give me a proper coach. But the roster is fire. That is fucking heat. I actually realized we don't even need to do the last question, because the last question was, what's the worst pro player routine you've heard of, which is basically similar to what we already had earlier. So there we go. Thank you to everyone who asked questions or bought things via the sponsors. Obviously, there's some sales coming up. We will see you on a future episode of Some of the Insight.